Welcome to another journey into the forgotten rhythms of the past. Tonight, we drift far away, to a place of ancient riverbanks, swaying palms, and sun-baked clay, to the gates of a city once called the jewel of Mesopotamia, a city where scribes etched laws into stone, where priests watched the stars from temple towers, and where ordinary people lived lives that were anything but ordinary. This is not the Babylon of legend, this is the real Babylon. And as you settle in, breathing slowly, letting the modern world melt away, we'll walk together through the winding alleyways. Feel the heat of the sun on mud brick walls. Hear the soft thrum of sandals on baked earth. Tonight, we won't just learn history. We will live it. Imagine this. It is still dark, but the stars have begun to fade behind a dusty orange haze that hints at dawn. The Tigris murmurs quietly somewhere beyond the barley fields. Its surface low and lazy, while the distant palm trees cast long shadows under a sky not yet awake. You stir on a mat woven from reeds, your back sore from yesterday's labor. The floor beneath you is not wood or stone, it is packed earth, cool to the touch. The same color as your hands, your name is forgotten by history. But this is your world. You are a brickmaker. Your day will begin before the sun, and it will end long after the air cools. You work not in the temples or courts of Babylon, but in its belly in the pits and yards where the city is built one baked square at a time. And there is so very much to build in the grand stories. Babylon is the land of towering ziggurats, of mighty kings, of glittering festivals under star-pricked skies. But none of that stands without you. The city lives on your labor, on the calloused hands of thousands who shape mud, haul water, and dry the very walls that rise toward the gods. You are poor, but you are not alone. You are one of many. Brickmakers are not slaves, though some may work beside you. You are low-born labor, landless, bound not by chains but by duty, by debt, and by the slow rhythm of need. Your family may have done this for generations. Your sons will likely do the same. There are no tools made of iron here, no machines to ease the weight, just your back, your fingers, and the recipe that has not changed in 1,000 years. Clay, water, straw, mix, mold, press, and bake. You rise while the sky is still dim, the air already warm with promise. Your first task, gathering clay from the pit near the canal abroad. Open hole where soft earth is pulled from below. The clay is sticky, dense, and heavy. You wade barefoot into it, your skin cold and caked as you heave it into baskets. This clay must be mixed. Water is drawn by hand, often carried in jugs on the shoulders of children or elders. You pour it slowly into the pit, squatting low as your fingers plunge into the slurry. The straw is old, dry, and brittle. It scratches your skin, but it binds the brick. Without it, the bricks crack and crumble in the sun. You mix the batch not with a shovel, but with your own hands and feet, stamping and kneading in a thick, sticky dance that coats your legs like wet cement. You cannot speak easily while you work. The mud pulls at your knees, your breath comes shallow, and the straw makes your throat itch. By mid-morning, the sun climbs in with it, the heat. Sweat cuts muddy trails down your skin. The flies come next. Once the mud is ready, it is pressed into wooden molds, simple rectangular frames laid out in neat rows. You lift handfuls of clay, press them in, smooth the top with a cow's palm, then lift the mold away to reveal a soft, shapeless future wall. The ground is dry and hot. The bricks must be laid in the sun for days to cure. Some will be dried only, used in homes and lesser buildings. Others will be kiln-fired, made strong for temples, palaces, and storehouses. There is no break. You squat, you mold, you lift, and you place. Your back aches. Your hands throb. But the work is steady, quiet. There's a rhythm here, a slow, ceaseless rhythm. It comforts some. Others go mad from it. The air grows still. The sun is high now. The mud begins to crack where it sits. There's a moment short, blessed when the labor pauses, a break. You crouch near the wall of a kiln or lean under a sparse reed awning that barely blocks the sun. There's no feast, no midday meal of richness. Perhaps a piece of bread, dry and flat, and a sip of water from a clay jar passed between hands. If the overseer is kind, the jar is full. If not, it is almost empty, and the water warm. You do not speak much. You save your breath. You stare at the bricks lined in rows before you, thousands of them, and you know you are only halfway done. This is not the kind of suffering that draws tears. It is the soft, sanded down ache of endless sameness. The sun does not care how tired you are. Neither does the city. Firing the bricks, the heat within the heat. When the bricks must be fired, the process is worse. The kilns are hot in a way that saps the strength from your bones. You carry the dried bricks, stacking them carefully within a chamber of stone. The kiln is fed with bundles of reed or dry dung, lit early and kept blazing for hours. The smoke stings your eyes. Your skin turns red. Your arms tremble. The overseer shouts instructions, but you can barely hear. The roar of flame is like a wind in your head. You watch the bricks harden and darken, their soft edges becoming firm. They are almost alive, sweating out their moisture, resisting the heat until they don't. The kiln work is some of the hardest. And yet when the bricks emerge, cooled and perfect, you feel a moment of strange pride. You made this. Your hands, your sweat, your hours. You made the walls that will rise. And then you begin again. The return home, dusk, fatigue, and quiet evening. The sun sinks low behind the reeds, casting long orange shadows over the fields. You are caked in mud, dust, and soot. Your tunic hangs loose and damp. Your fingers are blistered. Your legs feel like sandbags. But there is a small relief in the walk home. The air begins to cool. A breeze comes off the river, carrying the smell of dates and smoke. The city glows in the distant torches, oil lamps, flickering light from windows of mud brick homes. You pass others like you, silent, heads bowed. A few whisper greetings. Children run barefoot across the dry road, laughing, not yet burdened with labor. Your home is a single room. Your mat, the same as before. Your family may greet you with soft eyes or with silence, both are kindnesses. You eat what there is, a bowl of barley, a smear of lentils. You drink water that tastes of clay. And you sleep, not because you want to, but because your body demands it. Closing of Section 1. The brick never remembers the hand that made it. In the world of Babylon, the ziggurat rises. The palace expands. The temple looms tall. Kings take credit. Priests claim divinity. But none of it stands without you. The brick never remembers the hand that made it. But for a few hours tonight, we will. We remember the rhythm of your work. The scrape of straw. The weight of clay. The hiss of a kiln. The sound of sandals against dry ground. This was what it was really like to be a brickmaker in ancient Babylon. The name that never fades, his name echoes across the pages of time. Hammurabi. When people think of ancient Babylon, they may not know the brickmakers, or the priests, or the stargazers who whispered to the night sky. But they know Hammurabi, the king, the lawgiver, the man whose code, carved in stone, shaped civilization like no man before him. Yet Hammurabi was not born into legend. He was born into a world of chaos, compromise, and endless dust, and before he could give law, he had to take control. The world into which he was born, the city of Babylon, was not yet an empire when Hammurabi was born around 1810 BCE. At that time, Mesopotamia was a land of constant motion, a chessboard of cities and city-states, each with its own gods, its own armies, and its own ambitions. To the north, Ashur. To the south, the sprawling city of Larsa. To the east, the Elamites. To the west, desert tribes roaming with flocks and daggers. Babylon was small, a city with potential, but not yet power. It was surrounded by greater rivals, its influence fragile, its name unspoken in foreign temples. The air hung thick with tension. Alliances were brittle. Armies moved like shadows. Hammurabi entered this world as the son of a king but not a god. His father, Semublit, had begun to lift Babylon's status from obscurity, laying the groundwork for greatness. But it was Hammurabi who would carry the torch forward and raise it high. The ascent to power, strategy over strength when Hammurabi took the throne. He was not a conqueror. He was a diplomat, a thinker, a listener. He knew that strength alone would not secure Babylon's future. He needed leverage, and so, for the first years of his reign, Hammurabi forged friendships. He sent emissaries to neighboring cities. He traded grain for peace, timber for oaths, silver for silence. He studied his rivals, watched their wars, counted their losses, and he waited. The turning point came with the weakening of Larsa, Babylon's chief rival to the south. Its king had grown old, and its borders frayed. Hammurabi moved, not with fury but with precision. First he struck to the east, seizing cities that once paid tribute to Elam, then to the north, where alliances were already beginning to dissolve. By the time he turned south, Larsa was brittle and bruised. The victory was swift. Within a few years, Hammurabi had united nearly all of southern Mesopotamia under one rule. Not just a city, but a kingdom. Babylon, once a footnote, had become the center of the known world. The code of laws, carved into history with the land secured, Hammurabi turned to order. He had not led Babylon into dominance just to rule with chaos. He wanted permanence, a system. Code. The Code of Hammurabi is perhaps the most famous legal document. In ancient history, a stone stele over 7 feet tall, etched in tight, careful cuneiform. But what is most striking is not its scale. It is its detail. Over 280 laws, covering everything from theft to marriage, irrigation to wages. It was not soft. The code was strict, even brutal. An eye for an eye was not just a phrase, it was policy. But within its rigidity was a vision, a world where law stood above whim, where crime met consequence, and where justice had a shape, even if rough. At the top of the stele stands Hammurabi himself, depicted in carved relief as he receives the law from Shamash, the sun god and god of justice. This was no accident. It showed the people that Hammurabi ruled not as a tyrant, but as a vessel of divine order. And in doing so, he made Babylon not only a city of bricks but of laws. The balance of power, ruling with vigilance, but Hammurabi's reign was not only law codes and temple carvings. Even as he built Babylon into a cultural heart, he ruled with steel behind the reed. He reorganized the military, built fortifications, and ensured that messengers could travel swiftly across his domain. He knew that peace was never permanent, and even among allies, ambition stirs. He dealt with governors who disobeyed. He kept tabs on temple priests, whose wealth and power rivaled the crown. He was not above using fear when needed. But unlike many rulers, Hammurabi left behind no tales of cruelty for cruelty's sake. He was calculating, deliberate. He ruled for nearly 43 years, not through terror, but through order. And when he died, Babylon stood as a capital not just of power but of policy. The legacy in stone and memory centuries passed. The empires rose. They fell. Assyria would come, then Persia, then Greece. The bricks of Babylon would crumble. The ziggurats would erode. But the code remained. Fragments of it survived long after Babylon had turned to dust, and thousands of years later, archaeologists would unearth that black stone stele intact, legible. Waiting, it now rests not in Babylon, but in the Louvre Museum in Paris. It stands not as a relic, but as a testament to a man who turned a city into an empire, a testament to order in the face of chaos, a testament to the idea that law might outlast kings. Closing of Section 2. The man behind the laws. So when you hear the name Hammurabi, remember not just the laws. Remember the silence before war, the careful hands that shaped policy like a potter shapes clay, the weight of power carried not on swords, but on scrolls. He is long gone now, but in many ways, he still rules. This was Hammurabi's shadow. In Babylon, life was never fully your own. It belonged to the gods, to the rhythms of the stars, to the symbols etched into clay, to the voices of priests that echoed between colossal pillars. As you rise with the sun and walk among the baked streets of the city, there's always something above you, not just towers or palaces, but belief. To live in Babylon was to live beneath the watchful gaze of many gods, and their presence was not abstract, it was physical, visible, inescapable. The temple stood at the center of everything, not only spiritual sanctuaries, but social, political, and economic hearts of the city. And within them, secrets slept. The ziggurat that touched the sky, the great ziggurat of Babylon, Etameninki, rose higher than any other structure in the land. Its name meant house of the foundation of heaven and earth. From afar, it looked like a mountain carved by human hands. 7 terraces climbing to the sky, each smaller than the one beneath it. The outer bricks glowed in the sun, each one laid with careful labor. A staircase wrapped around it like a serpent of stone. But few could ascend. The top platform was reserved for priests and kings, and it was said, for the god Marduk himself. No one remembers now what truly stood at the summit. A small shrine, an altar, a celestial observatory, but those who lived below did not question. The ziggurat reminded them every day that the divine was above, and they below. Daily life at the temple courtyard. Imagine now that you are not a brickmaker nor a soldier. You are a temple assistant, a zanj, a lay servant. Your job is not to fight or build. It is to serve the gods in silence. You live within the temple's shadow, its walls thick and cool. Your tasks are humble, sweeping courtyards, lighting lamps, preparing offerings. And yet, every moment hums with ritual. Before dawn, you rise to sweep the outer gate. You are barefoot. You do not speak. Dust stirs with the first breeze of morning. Soon, the priests arrive. Their robes are linen. Their voices are low. Their gestures precise. Everything they do, from lighting incense to measuring oil, is part of the choreography practiced over centuries. Offerings are prepared. Dates, beer, bread, small portions are placed before stone idols. Believed to house the spirit of the divine, the gods do not eat, but their presence is honored in ritual, and always the city watches. The mystery of the divine statue at the heart of every temple was not a scroll, nor a holy book, but a statue, not decorative, not symbolic, sacred. To the Babylonians, the idol of Marduk was not a mere representation. It was Marduk himself. When priests addressed it, they were speaking to a living god. Each morning, the statue was awakened in ritual, washed, perfumed, dressed, and fed. The process was delicate and secretive. No commoner ever saw the idol. Only the high priest entered the sanctum, and there, in whispered words and slow movements, he performed the mispai, the opening of the mouth, a sacred rite that gave the statue breath, presence, and power. But what did the idol look like? No surviving image tells us. Not a sketch, not a copy, not even a description. It was lost. When the Persians came, they may have taken it, or perhaps it was hidden, buried beneath temple stone. Some say it lies still, untouched beneath the foundations of modern Baghdad, an idol, waiting. The gates and their ritual-powered temples were not isolated. They were connected to the life of the city. At the northern gate of Babylon stood the Ishtar Gate, a masterpiece of blue-glazed brick, decorated with lions, bulls, and dragons. To pass through it was to cross into sacred space. Processions moved through the gate during festivals, carrying the idol of Marduk through the city streets as thousands watched and wept. During the Akitu festival, Babylon as New Year's celebration, the god was taken from the temple, paraded beyond the city, and ritually returned. It was not theater. To the people, this was cosmic renewal, a reaffirmation of order, of life over chaos, and each person, from prince to potter, played a part. Temple archives and the sleeping word. Beneath the temple's upper chambers, in dusty side rooms, lay one of the great treasures of Babylonian life, the archives. Thousands of clay tablets rested here, stacked on wooden shelves or wrapped in linen. They did not sparkle. They were not read aloud in the market, but these tablets held everything: prayers, contracts, healing incantations, hymns, even receipts. Each tablet bore the scratchy cuneiform script, carved by stylists into soft clay, then baked hard. These were not scrolls, they were bricks of thought, and each tablet had its keeper, a scribe trained for years to read what others could not even recognize. Imagine crouching before a flickering oil lamp, tablet in hand. The air smells of dust and lamp oil. Your fingers blacken with ash as you search for a single line of a forgotten spell. You are looking for something lost, and perhaps something forbidden. The unwritten secrets, curses, burials, and whispers. Not everything in the temple was recorded. Some things were only whispered, stories, told of relics buried beneath the ziggurat, of ritual burials placed to sanctify the ground. Animal bones arranged in patterns, small idols wrapped in linen and placed in pots, curses written in miniature and sealed beneath doorways. To live in Babylon was to believe that magic lived in the corners, in the cracks, in the spaces between words. Even among temple staff, there were stories too dangerous to tell in the open. That a woman once entered the shrine uninvited and turned to stone. That a scroll written in blood lies beneath the foundation slab. That Marduk statue, if ever awakened incorrectly, would not bless, but destroy. These were not myths. They were truths, believed and passed down, not to thrill but to preserve respect. Dawn to dusk, life in the shadow of the temple as the sun arcs across the sky. The temple moves with it. Midday brings prayers. Evening brings songs. Night brings silence. You, the servant, move through each hour like a shadow yourself. You clean, prepare, serve, and observe. Sometimes you wonder what lies beneath the floor. Sometimes you think you hear whispers behind closed doors. But mostly, you move in silence. The city hums outside, markets, courtyards, canals. But within these walls, time slows. The gods do not rush. And so neither do you? Closing of Section 3. The Living Stone. So what was it really like to live in ancient Babylon? It was to walk beneath the eyes of gods. To live in a world shaped not only by labor and law but by mystery. By faith, even if you never entered the temple. You smelled its incense from the street. You heard its chants through stone walls. You felt its rituals reflected in daily rhythms, in markets, in marriages, in medicine. The temple was not somewhere else. It was within the city, within the people. Its bricks are gone now, but in some way, it still breathes. This was the heartbeat beneath the ziggurat, the silent secrets of Babylon. When you hear the name Babylon, your thoughts may drift to dust-colored alleys, crowded canals, the clang of tools on sun-baked bricks. But life in Babylon did not look the same for everyone. Just as the temple towered over the city, so too did a different kind of power, the palace. And within it, a world not of labor and hunger, but of leisure, luxury, and watchful eyes. This was a life of silks and secrets, of scrolls and servants, of influence earned not in fields or furnaces, but through strategy, alliance, and legacy. If you were born into Babylon's elite, the rhythm of your day beat to a very different drum. Let us walk quietly now, through a day behind those walls, not as commoners, but as those born into power. Dawn in the palace, a different kind of awakening in the early hours of dawn. The city outside is already stirring, vendors setting up, animals braying, fires crackling. But inside the palace, the morning arrives differently. You awaken not on a straw mat, but on a raised wooden bed, carved and oiled, layered with woven linen sheets imported from distant regions. A servant, quiet and barefoot, draws aside your curtain. He speaks your name only once. You nod. Warm water is brought in clay basins. You wash your face, your arms, your feet. Another servant brings scented oil, myrrh or frankincense, gently applied to the wrists and neck. This is not indulgence. This is routine. Your robe, perhaps dyed with indigo, is folded and laid across a carved bench. A belt of bronze or embroidered cloth fastens it at the waist. The room is dim, even with the sun rising. Thick walls keep the morning heat at bay. The slit window admits only angled light and the distant coo of birds. Outside, the city roars, but here only murmurs. Breakfast with the council, the language of influence. Breakfast is not eaten alone. Not truly. You step into a shaded inner courtyard, where fig trees grow in raised stone beds. Water flows through a shallow channel cut into the floor, brought from the Euphrates through careful irrigation. A low table holds the morning meal: bread, dates, salted fish, honey barley cakes, water wine, or a light beer brewed in the palace's own vats. But more important than the food are the people seated near you. A scribe with inky fingers, a merchant with sandal straps to clean to trust, a cousin from another branch of the family, smiling. Too much, perhaps. Conversations are layered. The words say one thing, the tone, another. How strong are the riverbanks this season? Might really mean, how are the farmers faring? Will they need grain shipments? Will they owe you more than just thanks? Every bite, every gesture is read like a line of cuneiform. Here, breakfast is not a meal. It is diplomacy. The scroll room knowledge as currency. Later in the morning, you make your way to one of the palace's most guarded inner chambers, the scroll room. This is no public archive. These clay tablets are not hymns or contracts or healing spells. They are accounts of land ownership, letters from distant governors, trade manifests, tax reports. Everything that matters to the running of the kingdom and your family as placed within it is carved here in tight, meticulous script. A young scribe bows slightly as you enter. He's already reading, lips barely moving, stylus in hand. He offers you a tablet, yesterday's update from a copper mine to valleys over him. The numbers are disappointing. You make a note. You need to speak to the overseer. Perhaps send someone, perhaps replace someone. Even knowledge, in Babylon, has a hierarchy. The private garden, a quiet interlude of status. Not all hours are for business. In the late morning, you retreat to the family garden. It is not large by modern standards. But in Babylon, where space is dense and land is labor, a private garden is a statement, not of size, but of serenity. There are tamarisk trees here and pomegranate bushes. A fountain burbles gently, its water pulled from an underground cistern. You walk slowly along the clay path, hands clasped, listening to the water. There's a bench where your grandfather once sat, where he used to whisper verses to the air. You sit there now, not because you are tired, but because this is what the elite in Babylon do. They display their stillness, their composure, their ownership of time. Even leisure is power. Midday business settling disputes and strengthening ties. By midday, the courtyard is busy again. Clients arrive, farmers with complaints, builders with petitions, traders seeking permits. They do not address you directly. At first, they speak to your steward. They bow. They present offerings, a small jar of sesame oil, a fine textile, a necklace of beads. Then you speak, calmly, slowly. You listen more than you talk. But when you speak, it is decisive. A grain tax is delayed for one village. A builder is fined for poor craftsmanship. A permit is granted for a new pottery stall near the southern wall. But only if your cousin's son gets a share. It is not corruption. It is order. And in Babylon, order flows downward. The role of women in elite life. It's easy to imagine Babylonian elite life as male-dominated, and in many ways, it was. But women of status had their own domains of power. Your wife, or perhaps your mother, oversees the household. Staff, she decides how food is prepared, how textiles are dyed, which servants are punished, and which ones are quietly protected. She may also be a landholder in her own right, unusual, but not impossible. She might own orchards. She might write contracts. She might, from behind the screen, influence decisions you will carry out. And if she is a priestess, she may hold more sway than either of you. Elite women in Babylon were not invisible. They simply moved differently. Afternoon leisure music, games, and symbolic showmanship. The heat of the day reaches its peak. But you are not in the streets. You are in a shaded room of the palace, or perhaps on a rooftop platform covered with linen awnings, where breeze occasionally stirs and cools. This is the time for pastime. But even leisure in elite Babylonian life is a kind of language. Musicians are brought in, skilled lyre players or flute performers. They do not play with passion or flourish. They play steadily, smoothly. Their melody is soft and repetitive, like ripples over water. You recline, a cup of wine, a sweet fig, maybe a small handful of roasted chickpeas. Board games are laid out, the royal game of played on carved wooden boards inlaid with shells or lapis lazuli. Strategy matters, but so does the way you move your pieces, calm, confident, and hurried. To rush is to reveal weakness. Servants stand nearby. Some hold fans, some carry messages, some simply watch, quietly, in case your glance becomes a command. In Babylon, to do nothing, gracefully, is to show how much you control. The elite child raised in shadow and stone. Your children, if you have any, live in another wing. Their voices do not echo through halls. They are trained not to shout. A son might be taught by a private tutor, a man who once served in the temple school. His education begins with numbers and symbols, but quickly moves to proverbs, riddles, and history. Who has wisdom? One tablet asks. he who is silent before the gods and thoughtful among men. Daughters are taught differently. Not less, but differently. They learn songs, rituals, weaving, perhaps reading. Some are prepared for marriage, some for priesthood, and a few, the rare few, are allowed to study deeply. But all are trained in poise. They learn how to sit still, how to pour water, how to lower their eyes in a way that doesn't show fear. They are born into power, but they are raised to know it is fragile. Evening, the banquet, and the dance of alliances. As the sky fades to copper and the shadows stretch across the palace courtyard, servants begin to prepare for the evening's event, a formal banquet. Not a feast of gluttony, but a theater of control. Mats are spread, torches are lit, and scent smoke curls from braziers, frankincense, perhaps, imported at great cost from the Arabian coast. The guests arrive, slowly, carefully. No one wants to be too early or too late. They come dressed in fine robes, linen, wool, sometimes dyed with madder root or saffron, bronze jewelry, beaded hairpieces, sandals of leather soft as silk. The food is abundant, but nothing is wasted. Lamb roasted with cumin, onion stew with lentils, breads brushed with honey, and the wine, always the wine, diluted with water, served in carved goblets. You drink slowly, never to excess. Music hums low in the background. Dancers sometimes perform, masked and slow-moving, not erotic, not comic, symbolic, ritualistic, telling old stories with body and veil. Conversations drift between topics, trade, omens, the weather in Elm. Everything is calculated. Every toast is weighted. Alliances are not forged with swords here. They are forged with quiet praise, shared jokes, and well-timed compliments. The politics of marriage and blood. In Babylonian elite circles, blood is power. But bloodlines are strategy. Marriages are not. Decided by affection, they are arranged for land, for access, for truce. Your daughter may be promised to the son of a rival, not to end tension, but to contain it. Contracts are drawn up, dowries discussed. A tablet is sealed with both family symbols, the marriage written in clay before it has ever lived. And once bound, the families are tethered, not just by love, but by law, not by debt, by eyes that watch both households with quiet interest. The sick room, when privilege falters, but power does not protect you from all things. When illness comes, and it always does, the elite do not suffer as the poor do, but they still suffer. You lie on a soft mat, surrounded by silent attendants. A healer is summoned, a temple trained. Ace, with tablets, tinctures, and charms. He mixes ingredients in a shallow bowl. Henbane, honey, crushed seeds. He murmurs a phrase. He touches your brow with reed oil. He does not promise healing. He simply observes. Your family places a small idol near the bed, a protective figurine carved from clay or shell. The name of the ailment is written on a slip and burned in fire. The ashes buried in the courtyard. You are not expected to rise quickly, but everyone waits, silently, for signs. Even in privilege, death crouches at the door. The elite funeral passage with pomp when a noble dies, the mourning is public. Not weeping in the streets, but processions, dress, formal signs. Mourners may be hired. Musicians may play slow, low dirges on reed pipes. The body is washed, wrapped, perhaps even embalmed with regional techniques. Burial depends on rank. Some are interred in family crypts. Some are entombed in courtyard vaults with stone seals carved with the family's crest. But the rituals matter most. Incantations are chanted. Offerings are made, bread, beer, a lock of hair, a small seal. And for weeks after, the family avoids certain foods, certain colors, certain topics, because to the elite, appearances are eternal. Dreams, omens, and nightfall. As night falls over Babylon, the sounds of the city soften, but never vanish. Dogs bark in the distance. Water moves through canals. A clay flute plays faintly from a rooftop nearby. You lie on your mat once more, staring at the ceiling, painted perhaps with stars or gods. You remember your dream. A lion walked through a field of reeds. A bird flew backward. You saw the face of a dead ancestor. You rise. You walk to the courtyard. A priest is summoned. He listens, solemnly. He says nothing for a long time. Then he speaks. The lion is ambition. The reeds are confusion. Beware the next festival. Avoid decisions until the third moon. You thank him? In Babylon, even dreams have weight. Conclusion of Section 4. The luxury of control, to live as an elite in Babylon, was not simply to enjoy wealth. It was to inhabit a world of careful choices, of posture and pressure, of influence wielded without sword or shout. You were fed, bathed, listened to, but never entirely free. Your days were scripted as much as any temple rite. Your alliances were etched in clay. Your smiles carried calculations. The poor labored under sun and stone. You labored under expectation. And at the center of both lives, the city watched. In ancient Babylon, faith was not a matter of private conscience. It was the air you breathed. It was in the dust that settled on your sandals. It was stitched into your clothes, pressed into your bread, whispered in your dreams. You could not live in Babylon and not believe. From the poorest laborer on the city outskirts to the wealthiest temple priest, everyone walked beneath the eyes of gods, not one or two, but a crowded sky full of divine watchers. And belief didn't just live in temples. It hummed in the streets. It echoed in work songs. It waited in the shadow of every decision. So now, let us leave behind the palaces, the markets, the dust of the construction yard, and step into the more hidden architecture of Babylon, the architecture of belief. The pantheon, a whole cosmos of gods. Babylon was a city filled with temples, but it was even more filled with gods. The Babylonians worshipped dozens of deities, each with their own personality, purpose, and power. Some were cosmic, like Anu, god of the heavens. Some were more immediate, like Nabu, the god of writing and wisdom, or Ishtar, goddess of love and war. And at the center of it all stood Marduk. He was not just the city's patron. He was the god of Babylon, exalted through temple chants and royal decrees alike. But the gods weren't just names. They had myths, feuds, families. They could be vengeful or generous, distant or close. They weren't perfect. They were powerful. To be Babylonian meant knowing which god to call on for birth, for harvest, for love, for revenge. And for most people, this divine court wasn't abstract. It was personal. You didn't just live in Babylon. You lived with these gods every day, from morning until the stars appeared. The temple is a city within a city. To understand Babylon's spiritual life, you must enter the temple, not as a tourist, not as a worshiper, but as someone who belongs, even if only for a day. The great temple of Marduk, called Esagila, dominated the city's sacred quarter, and beside it rose the Etemenenki, the towering ziggurat, reaching toward the heavens like a stairway for the divine. But temples in Babylon were not quiet sanctuaries. They were busy, bustling places. They had storehouses, kitchens, bakeries, breweries, and workshops. Priests didn't just pray. They managed land, directed labor, and oversaw sacred festivals. Inside the temple, rituals happened daily: washing of statues, lighting of incense, offerings of bread, oil, and beer. But few ever entered the holiest inner rooms. That was reserved for the high priests and occasionally the king. To see the inner statue of Marduk was to stand before the god himself, and that was a privilege very few could ever claim. The priests, gatekeepers of divine order. Babylonian priests were not simply spiritual guides. They were administrators, economists, scholars, and healers. They memorized chants that stretched for hours. They could read the heavens, diagnose dreams, and interpret omens in animal livers. There were many kinds of priests: Zenj, the ritual priests who oversaw temple ceremony; Sipu, the exorcists, masters of spells and purification; Bar, the diviners, who read omens and signs; Umanu, the scholars and scribes of the temple libraries. Each had training, each had status, each was bound by complex ritual codes. Priests did not marry. They bathed frequently. They fasted at intervals. They kept their bodies and their words clean. For the sake of the gods, the temple was not just their workplace, it was their life. The commoner's faith, prayers, and powdered talismans. But what of the average Babylonian? What of the brewer's daughter? The bricklayer? The old widow who lived near the southern gate? They could not visit the inner sanctums. They didn't write hymns. They didn't read the stars, but they believed deeply. Their faith lived in different places, in small clay figurines of household gods kept on shelves. An incense burned at dawn to ward off misfortune and whispered prayers before opening shop. And offerings left at street shrines, dates, water, flour. Copper beads, they were protective amulets. They hung small plaques of Ishtar or Pazuzu above doors. They drew circles in flour to guard against demons. For them, religion was not a system. It was protection. It was habit. It was hope. They may never hear a temple chant, but they repeated one phrase often, "O God, do not forget me." The rhythm of ritual days, weeks, seasons, the Babylonian year was full of sacred rhythms. Each day began with gestures, touching the forehead, offering water, reciting short blessings. Each week had designated prayers and taboos. But the grand moments came with the calendars turning. The Akichi festival, held at the New Year, was the most spectacular, celebrating Marduk's victory over chaos. In the king's divine appointment, seasonal rites marked planting and harvest. Lunar eclipses brought widespread fasting and prayer. On feast days, the city shimmered. People wore clean clothes. Statues were carried through streets. Temples rang with music. Children watched wide-eyed as priests chanted in ancient tongues. And for a few days, even the poor could feel close to the gods. Faith wasn't optional. It was the scaffolding of time itself. Dreams the gods whisper through sleep in the cool quiet of night. When the oil lamps had burned low and the city's bustle faded to distant echoes, a Babylonian would lay down not just to rest, but to listen. Sleep was never just a bodily need. It was a doorway. Dreams were considered direct messages from the divine, and everyone, from kings to farmers, paid attention. A line in a dream? That meant power. Falling into a river? That meant legal trouble. If you dreamed of building a house, expect an illness. The meanings were many. The consequences, sometimes severe. Dreams were recorded, cataloged, and interpreted by trained diviners, men who had memorized entire tablets of meanings, matched symbols to outcomes, and studied patterns passed down for generations. Before a major journey, before marriage, before launching a boat or planting a field, one might first sleep in the temple itself, hoping to receive a dream in sacred space. The gods did not always speak clearly, but they always watched, and so every morning in Babylon began not with breakfast, but with remembering. The restless dead, spirits that never slept if the gods whispered in dreams, the restless also spoke. Babylonians believed that not all spirits found peace after death. Some, those who were wronged, dishonored, or simply forgotten, wandered. They could haunt homes, cause illness, twist luck into misfortune. These were not monsters. They were people who had once lived, now full of longing and rage. To protect oneself, families held remembrance rites. On certain days of the year, food and drink were left at family tombs. A bowl of water, a few lentils, a name spoken aloud. Failure to do so invited anger from the other side. If illness lingered, if crops failed, if a child cried in their sleep for no reason, an exorcist might be called. He would perform the kick ritual, using incantations, water, oil, and small statues made of clay or wax to bind and banish the unquiet dead. Even in the city of stone and law, Babylon remained haunted. And the living knew, memory was a form of mercy. Magic, the silent language of fear and control. To walk the streets of Babylon was to walk through a landscape of unseen power. The world was full of forces, some divine, some demonic, most unpredictable. And so, magic, or Siptu, was woven into everyday life. This was not illusion. It was not stagecraft. It was protection. A woman giving birth might have a clay figure of a lion placed at the doorway to scare away evil spirits. A merchant might bury a charm beneath the foundation of his new shop. A man fearing betrayal might wear a tiny tablet engraved with protective words, and above all, spells chanted in low tones, never shouted, passed down through scribes, rarely altered. In Akkadian, Sumerian, or both, sometimes mixed, like layers of older and newer trust. There were spells to cure toothaches, to stop nightmares, to punish thieves. There were even spells to make a god listen. But magic in Babylon was not play. It was a language of fear, spoken carefully. While temples were sacred spaces, they were also major economic engines. They owned land. They managed livestock. They collected grain. They even issued loans. To serve the gods was to serve the city. As economy, a field might be registered under Marduk's name, farmed by laborers who paid a portion of their harvest to the temple granary. Temple scribes tracked every item, weighed, measured, recorded on clay tablets with cuneiform precision. Temple workshops produced goods, wool, perfumes, jewelry, which were then traded across the empire. And when foreign envoys came, it was the temples that often hosted them. To insult a temple was to insult Babylon itself. Faith was not just personal, it was public, it was profitable. And the gods, ever watchful, were never poor. Sacred prostitution, a myth misunderstood. There's a persistent rumor, told in textbooks and whispered in documentaries, that Babylonian temples were home to ritual prostitution, where women offered their bodies in honor of the gods. But this is largely misunderstood. Yes, Ishtar, the goddess of love and war, had temples where sexuality was honored. Yes, some women served as sacred devotees. Yes, festivals could involve symbolic unions, dance, and celebration of fertility. But the idea of widespread, required prostitution as a religious act, that's not supported by the best ancient evidence. Instead, many temple women, called Nadutu, lived in seclusion. They were literate, wealthy, powerful. They owned property. They funded family ventures. And they were married not to men, but to the gods. The myth of temple prostitution likely emerged later, distorted by foreign visitors who saw power and misunderstood it. Babylon's sacred spaces were mysterious, but not depraved. The silence of the gods when prayers go unanswered, and yet, not every prayer found an ear. Not every offering brought reward. Even the most faithful Babylonian knew the pain of silence. A child sick for days. A dream unfulfilled. A harvest lost despite the ritual. In these moments, the believer did not turn away. They doubled their efforts, a larger offering, a longer fast, a vow to walk barefoot to the temple gate. The silence of the gods was not seen as abandonment. It was seen as a test, or perhaps as a consequence of some forgotten mistake. The faithful did not curse the heavens. They searched themselves, line by line, thought by thought, for the offense they must have committed. The gods were not cruel. They were busy, or waiting, or teaching a lesson. And so Babylon prayed even harder, even when the sky said nothing back. Nightfall, when the city belonged to shadows and stars as the city dimmed, and shadows stretched long through courtyards and streets. A different kind of stillness settled. Torches flickered. Water flowed in narrow canals. Owls called from rooftops, and faith, so loud in daylight, softened. Priests recited final chants. Families knelt by household shrines. Children whispered good night to Ishtar. And the stars, always important to Babylonian timekeeping and prophecy, wheeled into position. Every movement mattered, a planet's alignment, a star's brightness. It was all recorded. It was all read, not for curiosity, but for continuity. Because to live in Babylon was to be part of a story, and the stars were its punctuation. Closing thought, to believe was to belong. Faith in Babylon was not about doctrine. It was about rhythm, about repetition, about reassurance, whether in palace or hut, temple or workshop. Belief was a daily companion. The gods could be merciful, or moody, or entirely silent, but never absent. To be Babylonian was to live with one foot in the mortal world, and one hand always outstretched towards something eternal. Imagine, if you will, the first light of dawn slipping quietly over the rooftops of Babylon. It does not flood the streets, but peeks, carefully, through narrow alleys and over the curved domes of small ovens still warm from last night's bread. The sky is streaked in rose gray, and the only sounds are the stirrings of home, a clay door scraping open, the soft rustle of straw underfoot, and the faint, deliberate splash of water into a basin before the temple bell rings, before the markets shout, and the scribes uncap their reed pens, Babylon lives behind closed walls. Behind those walls, in kitchens, in courtyards, in shaded sleeping chambers, unfolds the rhythm of ordinary life. This is not the life of kings or merchants, not the drama of the ziggurat or the laws of Hammurabi. This is something softer, slower, more human. This is the world of the household, where babies are born and elders die, where hands knead dough and lovers share laughter, where faith, survival, and family all touch the same bowl of barley. Let us step inside, not as visitors, but as invisible guests. The shape of a Babylonian home, the homes of Babylon were not palaces, though to those who lived in them, they were worlds entire. Most houses were built of sun-dried mud brick, stacked in careful rows, then plastered with clay or white lime. The rooftops were flat, used for drying clothes, sleeping in summer, or watching the stars. Doors were narrow, windows were rare, privacy was valued, and shadows kept the home cool. Houses shared walls with neighbors, like soft clay puzzle pieces, forming tight clusters around. Courtyards, the floor was often beaten earth, or laid with baked brick if the family was wealthy. The front door might open onto a small antechamber, then lead into a central courtyard. The heart of the home, round it, rooms fanned out, storage spaces, sleeping chambers, small work areas, and of course, the kitchen. This was not a place of decorations or furniture. There were no chairs with arms or plush pillows. People sat on mats. They slept on woven reed pallets. They worked with what was needed and little else. But here, in this simple space, pulsed the full complexity of Babylonian domestic life. The quiet kitchen, scents, tasks, and tools. There is no stove. Instead, a rounded clay oven. The tanner squats like a sleeping beast in the corner, its belly blackened by thousands of meals. Firewood is rare, so dried reeds and dung fuel most cooking. The smell, smoky, earthy, faintly sweet, hangs in the walls. A grinding stone rests on the floor. Each morning, the first task, grind barley. Grind it slowly, patiently, rhythms passed down from mother to daughter. The kitchen is not a separate room, more a corner of the courtyard or a nook near the back wall. A clay jar of water, covered with a fabric to keep flies away, sits nearby. Chickpeas soak. Lentils boil. A few figs are drying in the sun, their skins wrinkling like old fingers. There are no metal pans, no ceramic plates stacked high. Dishes are simple, clay bowls, wooden spoons, woven baskets lined with linen. Food is both daily labor and spiritual act. Offerings are sometimes taken from the morning as first handful, a pinch left for the gods before the rest is cooked. A household scent is its signature: smoke, bread, garlic, wet clay. To walk into a Babylonian home at midday is to smell life in all its simplicity. The roles within men, women, and the family structure in Babylon. The household was a microcosm, a miniature city ruled by the rhythms of gender, age, and obligation. The father, or Belu BBT, was nominally the head, responsible for legal decisions, business affairs, and protection. But in the intimate spaces of home, women held immense power. They ran the house, they managed the food, the linen, the servants. They passed down songs, prayers, remedies, and the subtle diplomacy of domestic peace. A wife might own property, especially if she came from a merchant family. She might lend grain. She might oversee trade. Some even had seals of their own, allowing them to sign contracts without male permission. Children were part of the machinery of home. Girls helped with food and weaving. Boys fetched water, cleaned the courtyard, or studied with a tutor if the family could afford it. Grandparents often lived in the home, too. The old woman who once ground grain now supervised the girls who did it. The Babylonian household was not just a shelter. It was a school, a temple, a fortress. Each room held memory. Each tool held a story. Each role, even the smallest, mattered. Children of the house laughter, learning, and labor imagined the soft patter of small feet on clay tiles. The morning hum of a mother braiding her daughter's hair while her son peeks into a pot. Curious about breakfast, Babylonian children were not idle. From a young age, they had roles, expectations, and a presence woven tightly into household life. A girl of 5 might already know how to grind grain, sweep the courtyard, or shape a flatbread. A boy of 7 could carry water jars, feed goats, or sit beside his father learning how to read cuneiform. Education was a privilege, not a guarantee. Sons of scribes, priests, and officials were most likely to attend the Edaba, the tablet house, a school run by scribes where boys sat cross-legged, stylus in hand, copying tablets with aching patience for others. Learning came through doing. A potter's son learned the wheel. A bricklayer's daughter learned to mix straw and clay. But alongside chores and learning, there was play. Children had dolls, carved animals, hoops, and whistles. They raced in the streets, sang counting rhymes, and teased each other. Childhood in Babylon wasn't carefree, but it wasn't joyless either. It was a shared rhythm, early rising, small hands helping, evenings spent under open skies with the scent of warm bread in the air. Birth and death, the silent bookends of a Babylonian life. Birth in Babylon took place at home. No hospitals, no sterile instruments, just women helping women. A midwife would attend, often with a helper. The birthing woman crouched or knelt, supported by another woman. Incantations might be whispered, oils warmed, water ready. It was a risky moment. Maternal mortality was high, infant loss even higher. But when all went well, the baby was washed, rubbed with salt, wrapped in linen, and given a name, often honoring a god, a grandparent, or a moment. And when life ended, as it always did, the house adjusted. Mourning was done quickly. The body was anointed, wrapped, and taken to a family tomb if possible, or buried nearby. Clay figurines might be placed near the head. Wails might rise from the courtyard. But life, so tethered to survival, moved on. The mat would be cleaned, the oven rekindled. A prayer whispered to the gods of the underworld. In Babylon, both beginnings and endings were intimate, and both happened within these humble walls. Water, waste, and cleaning the home. Imagine carrying water every day, twice a day, from a well or nearby canal, balanced in clay jars, across narrow streets or slippery alleyways. Water was precious, used for cooking, drinking, washing feet and hands, wiping down mats, and mixing with clay. There were no pipes, no plumbing. Wastewater was tossed into alley gutters. Human waste, collected in pots and dumped outside the city or into cesspits. And yet, Babylonian homes were clean. Courtyards swept, ashes scattered to deter pests, oil lamps trimmed, textiles shaken. Cleanliness wasn't luxury. It was order. It was respect for the gods, for guests, for one's ancestors. And every home had its rhythm: sweep, sprinkle water to settle dust, light incense. A clean home was a safe home, one less likely to invite spirits, or rodents, or disease. The family shrine gods amongst the laundry nestled in a niche of the courtyard or wall ledge. Every home had a small altar, a shelf with clay figurines, a bowl for offerings, a lamp, sometimes a carved symbol or painted sign. This was the family's sacred space. Morning offerings might include a few drops of beer, a pinch of flour, or a bit of incense. At night, prayers were said softly: "Protect my child, keep our roof from leaking, let the lentils last." These were not elaborate rituals. They were whispers of hope, gratitude, and fear. The gods of Babylon were not distant. They were in every corner, in every flickering flame. And so, even amidst cooking, scolding, laughing, and sleeping, faith held the home together. Domestic disputes and forgiveness, no home was always peaceful. Arguments flared. Children disobeyed. Mothers snapped. Fathers withdrew. But there was also resolution. Most disputes were handled. Within the family, elders mediated. Silence gave way to words. Sometimes a shared chore helped cool tempers. A burned flatbread might spark a joke. A mended tunic might signal forgiveness. There were no therapists, but there was routine, repetition. Rebuilding trust through shared labor and shared rest. Love was shown in small acts. A husband bringing water. A child wrapping her father's tired feet in cloth. And in the evening, when the oil lamp flickered and the mat was rolled out, there was comfort in the nearness of breath, of family, of home. Seasons in the home heat, rain, and adaptation. Babylon new seasons in summer. Rooftops became bedrooms. Mats were carried upstairs. People slept beneath the stars, chased by breezes and mosquitoes alike. In winter, clay ovens glowed longer. Reed mats were doubled. Children stayed close during the rainy season. Roofs leaked. Basins were placed. Food was stored with care. The home adapted. Clothes changed. Routines shifted. But the rituals endured. Morning prayers, water collection, grinding grain. Seasonal change did not bring anxiety. It brought repetition, predictability. And in repetition, Babylon found peace. Closing. The invisible core of a civilization, the great ziggurat rose high. The temple bells rang. The laws of Hammurabi were carved in stone. But the true soul of Babylon? It lived in its homes, in soft hands shaping dough, in lullabies, in whispered hopes beside clay lamps. The Babylonian household was never grand, but it was enduring, and within its modest walls beat the steady, sacred rhythm of a people who knew how to live, love, work, and pray together. As the quiet hum of the Babylonian household fades, its clay hearths cooling and its courtyard settling into the evening stillness, we step beyond the mud brick walls of home and into the arteries that keep the city alive. The year is still the mid-second millennium BCE, and the air is warm, heavy with the scent of river silt, damp reeds, and the faint sweetness of barley fields stretching toward the horizon. Babylon, the jewel of Mesopotamia, is not just a city of towering ziggurats or bustling markets. It is a city of water, its lifeblood drawn from the Euphrates and Tigris through a network of canals, carved by countless hands. Tonight we leave the domestic rhythms of the household where water was fetched for cooking and cleaning and immerse ourselves in the life of a canal worker or laborer, whose toil ensures the city's fields bloom, its homes are fed, and its temples stand tall. Imagine yourself as this worker, your days shaped by the weight of mud and water, your hands caked with the earth that sustains Babylon. Let us walk through a day in your life, step by step, and feel the relentless rhythm of a labor that flows like the canals themselves, connecting the household's quiet needs to the city's grand ambitions. Picture yourself waking in the dim pre-dawn light in a small reed hut on the edge of a canal, far from the city's bustling center. Your bed is a woven mat, its fibers coarse against your skin, a humble echo of the household. Straw pallets, but far simpler than the elite linen-draped beds. The air is cool, heavy with the musty smell of damp earth and the faint tang of river water that seeps into everything. You share this hut with other workers, men and women, some free like you, others bound by debt or servitude, their soft breaths mingling with the distant croak of frogs. Along the canal bank, the air carries the faint rustle of reeds swaying in the early breeze, and you rise, your body stiff from yesterday's labor, your hands already rough with calluses from wielding a wooden spade. You pull on a simple tunic, its linen patched and stained with mud, and step outside. The air cool but promising the heat of the day to come. The canal stretches before you, a long, shimmering ribbon of water, its surface reflecting the first hints of dawn. The air smells of silt and wet clay, a scent as familiar as your own breath, and the ground underfoot is soft, squelching beneath your bare feet. Your tools are waiting in a communal shed, a wooden spade, its blade worn smooth, a woven basket for hauling mud, and a clay jug for water. You join your fellow workers, their faces shadowed in the dim light, their voices low to conserve energy for the day's toil. The air is filled with the soft slosh of water against the canal's banks, and the occasional splash of a fish, a reminder of the life that depends on your labor. Your task is to maintain the canal, to keep its waters flowing to the fields, the city, and the households we visited, where clay pots are filled for cooking and cleaning. Without your work, the barley would wither, the ziggurats would stand on dry land, and Babylon's heart would falter. Your first task is to clear the canal's banks, where silt and debris have built up, threatening to choke the flow. You wade into the shallow water, the cold biting your ankles, the mud sucking at your feet like a living thing. The air is thick with the smell of wet earth and decaying reeds, and you thrust your spade into the bank, scooping heavy clumps of silt into your basket. Each scoop is a strain, your arms aching, the the basket's weight digging into your shoulders as you haul it to a pile on the shore. The air grows warmer as the sun rises, the horizon glowing orange, and a fine mist of sweat and silt clings to your skin. Unlike the household servant who fetched water for the family's hearth, your labor is with the water itself, shaping its path, ensuring it reaches the fields that feed the city. The air carries the distant lowing of oxen and the shouts of farmers, their lives tied to your work. Just as the laundress's vats depended on the canal's flow, as the morning progresses, you move to a section of the canal where a breach threatens to flood a nearby field. The air is heavy with the urgency of the task, the overseer's voice sharp as he directs the crew. You kneel in the mud, your hands plunging into the cold, sticky earth, packing it with straw and clay to seal the breach. The work is slow, methodical, the air filled with the soft squelch of mud and the rhythmic thud of spades. Your tunic is soaked, clinging to your skin, and the flies buzz around you, drawn by the damp and sweat. The contrast with the household is stark there. The air was warm with the scent of baking bread. Here, it's thick with silt and labor, yet both sustain Babylon. The canal's water flowing to the fields that fill the household's granary. Your hands, cracked and caked with mud, move with a steady rhythm, the task of meditation of sorts. Though your body protests with every motion, midday brings a brief pause, a moment of relief under a woven reed awning by the canal's edge. The air is hot now, the sun relentless, and you sit on the ground, eating a simple meal of flatbread and dry dates, the bread dry and gritty, the dates a small sweetness against the day's toil. The air carries the faint hum of insects and the soft lap of water, a soothing backdrop despite the ache in your shoulders. You share a clay jug of water with your crew, its contents warm but vital, a far cry from the elite's water wine or the household's cool jars. The overseer washes, his presence a constant pressure. Unlike the household matron's quiet authority over her kitchen, your meal is brief, the air heavy with the knowledge that the canal waits, its silt ever shifting, its banks ever crumbling. You wipe sweat from your brow, your hands leaving streaks of mud, and return to the water, the rhythm of work pulling you back. The afternoon is spent dredging a deeper section of the canal, where sediment has slowed the flow. You wade chest deep, the water cold and murky, your spade scraping against the canal bed. The air thick with the smell of rotting plants and wet clay. Your basket fills with heavy, dripping mud, and you haul it to the bank, your legs trembling under the weight. The air is humid, the sun's heat reflecting off the water, and your tunic clings like a second skin. The work is relentless, each scoop a test of endurance, yet it connects to the lives. We've explored the brickmaker's clay, the household's water, the temple's offerings all rely on these canals. Just as the mine slave's silver adorned the bathhouse, the air carries the distant chatter of farmers, their fields thriving because of your labor. A silent thread tying your toil to Babylon's prosperity. As evening falls, the canal glows with the orange light of dusk, the air cooler, tinged with the scent of reeds and the faint smoke of village fires. You make a final pass, checking the banks for cracks, your spade heavy in your hands, your body weary, but moving with practiced ease. The air is filled with the soft rush of water, a sound that has become your constant companion, and you feel a quiet pride in knowing the canal flows smoothly, its waters reaching the city's heart. You return to the reed hut, your hands caked with dry mud, your legs aching from hours in the water. Dinner is a shared meal of barley gruel and bread, the air warm with the closeness of your fellow workers, their voices low as they share stories of the day. As you lie down on your reed mat, the earth firm beneath you, the air carries the faint hum of the canal's soft lap, a distant frog, the rustle of reeds in the breeze. Your hands, cracked and sore, rest at your sides, and your mind drifts to tomorrow's work. The endless cycle of digging and clearing. This is the life of a Babylonian canal worker, a life of mud and water, of sweat and silence, woven into the city's lifeblood. From the household's clay jars to the fields that feed the palace, let the gentle flow of the canal and the quiet of the night carry you into the stillness of history. As the gentle lap of the canal's waters fades, carrying life to Babylon's fields and households, we step into the shaded corners of the city, where the hum of labor takes on a softer, more delicate rhythm. The year is still the mid-2nd millennium BCE, and the air is warm, filled with the scent of sun-baked clay, the faint dust of the marketplace, and the subtle fragrance of freshly spun wool. Babylon thrives not only on its canals and ziggurats, but on the crafts that clothe its people, from the brickmaker's coarse tunic to the elite's fine robes. Tonight, we leave the muddy banks of the canal worker's world and immerse ourselves in the life of a weaver, a woman whose hands spin the threads that dress the city. Her work is vital to the household's warmth as the canal's water is to its sustenance. Imagine yourself as this weaver, your days shaped by the steady clack of the loom, your fingers dancing with wool and linen in a small workshop tucked in the heart of Babylon. Let us walk through a day in your life, step by step, and feel the quiet rhythm of a craft that weaves the fabric of the city, thread by thread. Picture yourself waking in the dim light of dawn, in a small room within a mud brick house in Babylon's residential quarter, not far from the bustling markets. Your bed is a woven reed mat, its fibers softened by years of use, a humble echo of the household. As simple comforts, but far from the canal worker's sparse hut. The air is cool, heavy with the musty scent of clay walls and the faint aroma of last night. As barley porridge, shared with your family, a husband, perhaps, or children who will soon learn your craft. The room hums with the city's early stirrings, a neighbor's soft song, the creak of a wooden door, the distant splash of water from a nearby canal. Your hands, already rough from years at the loom, ache slightly as you rise, pulling on a simple linen tunic, its edges frayed but clean, woven by your own hands. The air carries the promise of your work, the scent of wool and flax lingering from the workshop below. You descend the narrow staircase to your workshop, a small, shaded space with mud brick walls and a low ceiling. The air is thick with the earthy smell of raw wool and the faint, grassy scent of flax, stored in baskets along the wall. Your tools are simple but cherished, a wooden loom, its frame worn smooth by countless threads, a bone spindle for spinning, and a clay jar of water to dampen your hands. The workshop is your world, its floor dusted with fine fibers, its air alive with the soft clack of the loom's shuttle. You light a small oil lamp, its flame casting a warm glow, the faint, oily scent blending with the wool's musk. Outside, the city wakes, the hum of vendors, the splash of canal water, the footsteps of passers-by, but your focus is inward, on the threads that will become cloth for a merchant's robe, or a household's blanket, as essential as the water the canal worker ensures. Your first task is to spin the raw wool, a process as familiar as breathing. You sit on a low stool, your hands working the spindle, twisting tufts of wool into fine threads. The air is filled with the soft whir of the spindle, its bone tip spinning against the clay floor, and the faint rustle of wool as you pull it taut. The wool is coarse, catching on your calloused fingers, its smell earthy and warm, a contrast to the canal worker's wet silk. You work with care, the thread growing longer, smoother, as you spin, the rhythm steady and soothing, though your wrists ache from the repetition. The air grows warmer as the sun climbs, filtering through a reed mat over the window, and a fine layer of fiber dust settles on your tunic, a badge of your craft. This is not the brutal toil of the mine slave or the muddy labor of the canal worker, but a quiet art, its precision vital to Babylon's daily life. As the morning progresses, you move to the loom, its wooden frame creaking as you thread it with care. The air is filled with the rhythmic clack of the shuttle, weaving warp and weft into a tight pattern. Your hands move deftly, guiding the threads, their texture soft but demanding, each pass requiring focus to avoid tangles. The workshop is small, the air warm and still, the scent of wool and flax mingling with the faint sweat of your effort. Outside, the market hums, vendors calling, donkeys braying, the splash of canal water, but your world is the loom, its rhythm a meditation that connects to the household we visited, where your cloth will become blankets or curtains, warming the same rooms that relied on the canal's water. Your work is solitary, yet it touches every life, from the priestess's sacred robes to the brickmaker's simple tunic. Midday brings a brief pause, a moment of quiet in the workshop's shade. You sit by the door, eating a simple meal of flatbread, dates, and a smear of sesame paste. The bread soft compared to the canal worker's dry loaf, the dates sweet against the day's labor. The air carries the distant chatter of the market and the faint scent of baking bread. From a nearby oven, a reminder of the baker's craft. You share a clay jug of water with your apprentice, perhaps a daughter learning the loom. Its contents cool but tasting of clay. The air is hot now, the sun high, and you wipe sweat from your brow. Your hands dusted with fibers that cling like a second skin. The contrast with the household is subtle but clear there. The matron prepared meals here. You weave the cloth that adorns her home, both labors sustaining Babylon's rhythm. The afternoon is spent weaving a finer cloth, perhaps for a merchant's robe or a temple offering. The air is humid, the workshop growing warmer, and you dampen your hands with water to keep the threads pliable. The clay jar cool against your fingers. The loom's clack is steady, almost hypnotic, the threads forming intricate patterns under your skilled hands. Your eyes strain in the dim light, your fingers sore from hours of work. But there's a quiet pride in each completed row, each piece a step toward clothing the city. The air carries the faint hum of your apprentice's voice, practicing a pattern, and the distant splash of the canal, whose waters feed the flax fields that supply your threads. Your work connects to the canal worker's toil, just as the household's blankets rely on your loom, a silent thread tying Babylon's lives together. As evening falls, the workshop grows quieter, the air cooler, tinged with the scent of oil lamps and the distant smoke of cooking fires. You finish a length of cloth, folding it carefully, its texture soft under your fingers. Ready for the market or a temple's altar. The air is filled with the soft rustle of linen as you store your tools, the loom falling silent, its frame a quiet sentinel in the dim light. You climb to your room, your hands aching, your body weary but satisfied, and share a simple dinner with your family: barley stew, bread, and a sip of beer. The air warm with the closeness of shared stories. The city's hum fades a vendor's last call, the soft lap of canal water, the creak of a neighbor's door. As you lie down on your reed mat, the air still, filled with the faint scent of wool and the quiet of the night. Your hands rest at your sides, rough but skilled. Your mind drifts to tomorrow's work, the endless rhythm of spindle and loom. This is the life of a Babylonian weaver, a life of quiet craft, of thread, and patience woven into the city's fabric, from the household's warmth to the temple's sacred robes. Let the gentle clack of the loom and the stillness of the night carry you into the quiet of history, as the gentle clack of the weaver as loom fades into the quiet of Babylon. As evening its threads weaving warmth for the city's homes, we turn our gaze upward to the heavens that guided the lives below. The year remains the mid-second millennium BCE, and the air is cool, carrying the faint scent of burning oil lamps, the distant murmur of the Euphrates, and the subtle dust of clay tablets stored in temple archives. Babylon was not only a city of bricks and canals, but a place where the stars were read like words, their patterns shaping the fates of kings and commoners alike. Tonight, we leave the weaver's workshop, where cloth clothed the body, and ascend to the heights of the ziggurat, where the mind sought to understand the cosmos. Imagine yourself as a Babylonian astronomer, your nights spent charting the stars, your hands tracing cuneiform on clay to record the heaven's secrets. Let us walk through a night in your life, step by step, and feel the quiet wonder of a craft that connected the weaver as earthly labor to the divine order above. Picture yourself stirring in the late afternoon, in a small chamber within the temple complex, near the towering Enameniki, the ziggurat that reaches for the sky. Your bed is a simple reed mat, its fibers smooth from use, a modest echo of the weaver's own resting place, far humbler than the elite's carved beds. The air is warm, heavy with the musty scent of mud brick walls and the faint aroma of incense lingering from daytime rituals. You share this space with other temple scholars, scribes, priests, fellow stargazers, their soft breaths blending with the distant chant of evening prayers. Your body is rested, for your work begins when the city sleeps, and you rise, pulling on a linen robe, its texture soft but plain, woven perhaps by hands like those we followed. The air carries the promise of the night, the stars waiting to reveal their truths. And you step into the temple courtyard, the cool stone underfoot a reminder of the brickmaker's labor. The courtyard is quiet, the air filled with the scent of myrrh from a nearby altar and the faint glow of torches casting shadows on the ziggurat S-base. Your tools are simple but sacred, a stylus of bone, a stack of damp clay tablets, and a set of papyrus charts rolled in a linen cloth. You climb the ziggurat's steep stairs, your sandals brushing against the baked bricks. Each one laid by workers like those we met, their labor grounding your ascent to the heavens. The air grows cooler as you climb, the city's hum fading the clatter of markets. The splash of canals replaced by the soft rustle of wind and the distant call of a night bird. At the summit, a small platform awaits, its surface open to the sky. The air alive with the vastness of the stars. A canvas of light that guided the weaver's household and the canal worker's fields. Your first task is to observe the heavens. A ritual as precise as the weaver's threading of her loom. You unroll your papyrus chart, its surface marked with symbols for stars and planets, and set a clay tablet before you, the damp clay cool under your fingers. The air is crisp, the stars sharp against the black sky, and you trace their paths with your eyes, noting the position of Sin, the moon god, and Shamash, the sun god, whose light will return at dawn. The air smells faintly of dust, and the oil lamp you light, its flame steady in the still night, casting a soft glow on your tablet. You press your stylus into the clay, recording the stars' movements in tight cuneiform, each wedge a prayer to the gods who govern fate. The work is slow, deliberate, the air filled with the faint scratch of stylus on clay, a rhythm as steady as the weaver's shuttle. Yet your task seeks to weave not cloth but meaning from the cosmos. As the night deepens, you track the planets Ishtar, Marduk. 9 under their paths a code you've learned over years of study. The air is thick with the weight of your role, for your observations guide the king's decisions, the priest's rituals, and the farmer's planting seasons, whose fields rely on the canals we explored. Your hands, unscarred compared to the canal worker's calluses, move with care, the clay tablet filling with rows of symbols that will be baked and stored in the temple archives, alongside the weaver's linen-wrapped tablets. The air carries the distant hum of the city below, torches flickering a soft chant from a shrine, but up here it's just you and the stars. The silence broken only by the occasional rustle of papyrus or the faint drip of water from a nearby cistern. Midnight brings a moment of pause, a chance to reflect under the starlit sky. You sit on the platform's edge, eating a small meal of flatbread and dried figs. The bread soft but plain, a humble echo of the household's fare. The air is cool, the scent of oil and clay mingling with the faint breeze from the Euphrates. And you sip water from a clay cup, its taste earthy but refreshing. The contrast with the weaver's life is subtle, her hands spun threads for the body, yours ETCH signs for the soul. Yet both are essential to Babylon's rhythm, her cloth warming homes, your charts guiding harvests. The air is heavy with the knowledge that a misread star could mean a failed crop or a lost battle. A burden far different from the canal worker's physical toil, but no less weighty. You return to your tablet, the stylus steady, the stars unyielding in their silent dance. The late night is spent calculating, your mind tracing patterns learned from masters long gone. The air grows colder, the stars brighter, and you consult your charts, comparing tonight's sky to records from years past. The tablet under your hand is nearly full, its surface crowded with wedges, each a fragment of the heaven's story. The air smells of damp clay and the faint smoke of your lamp, its wick burning low. You note an omen of stars' unexpected shift, perhaps a warning for the king, and the air feels heavier, the silence deeper. Your work connects to the temple we explored, where priests like those we met will read your tablets, their rituals shaped by your observations. Just as the weaver's cloth adorned their altars, the air carries the faint echo of their chants, a reminder of the gods who watch both you and the city below. As dawn approaches, the sky softens, the stars fading into a pale orange glow. You finish your tablet, wrapping it in linen to protect it until it's baked, and descend the ziggurat, your sandals brushing the bricks. The air now tinged with the scent of morning dew and distant cooking fires. The city stirs, vendors calling, canals splashing, the weaver's loom waking, but you return to your chamber, your body weary, your eyes strained from the night's vigil. You share a simple meal with your fellow scholars, barley porridge, bread, a sip of beer, the air warm with their quiet talk of stars and omens. As you lie down on your reed mat, the air still, filled with the faint scent of clay and the distant hum of Babylon, your hands rest. The stylus still. Your mind drifts to tonight's sky, the endless dance of the stars. This is the life of a Babylonian astronomer, a life of quiet wonder, of clay and starlight. woven into the city's soul, from the weaver's threads to the temple's prayers. Let the gentle glow of the stars and the stillness of the dawn carry you into the quiet of history. The starlit vigil of the astronomer fades as dawn creeps over Babylon. The heaven's secrets etched on clay tablets that guide the city's fate. The year remains the mid-2nd millennium BCE, and the air is warm thick, with the scent of ripening barley, the faint dust of sun-baked fields, and the distant murmur of the Euphrates, whose canals tended by workers we followed water the crops that feed the city. Babylon's story, as we've seen, and what it was really like to live in ancient Babylon, and more, is one of interconnected lives, brickmakers shaping the city's walls, weavers crafting its cloth, astronomers reading its stars, all bound by labor and hardship to sustain the jewel of Mesopotamia. Tonight, we step from the ziggurats' starry heights to the sprawling fields beyond the city, where the grain harvester toils under the relentless sun to fill the granaries that sustain households, temples, and palaces. Imagine yourself as this harvester, your days shaped by the weight of sickle and stalk, your hands scarred by the crops that feed Babylon. Let us walk through a day in your life step by step and feel the grueling rhythm of a labor that connects the weaver's cloth, the canal's water, and the astronomer's omens to the city's survival, a hardship that echoes the struggles of the brickmaker and underscores why life in Babylon tested the limits of endurance. Picture yourself waking before dawn in a small mud brick hut on the edge of a barley field, far from the city's towering ziggurats. Your bed is a woven reed mat, its fibers coarse against your skin, much like the weaver's simple pallet, but dustier, stained with the earth of the fields. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of dry soil and the faint tang of straw stored nearby, a humble contrast to the astronomer's incense-filled chamber. You share this hut with your family or fellow harvesters, their soft breaths mingling with the distant lowing of oxen in the fields. Your body aches from yesterday's work, your hands rough with calluses from gripping a sickle. And you rise, pulling on a worn linen tunic perhaps woven by hands we met its fabric patched and faded from the sun. The air carries the promise of another long day, the fields waiting, their bounty vital to the households we explored, where bread is baked from your grain. You step outside, the air crisp but heavy with the scent of barley and the faint mist rising from the nearby canal, its waters maintained by the canal workers' toil. Your tools are simple, a bronze sickle, its blade dulled from use, a woven basket for gathering stalks, and a clay jug for water. You join your fellow harvesters, their faces shadowed in the dim light, their voices low to save strength for the day ahead. The air is filled with the soft rustle of barley stalks swaying in the early breeze, and the faint creak of a cart being prepared for the harvest. Your task is to reap the grain that feeds Babylon, from the brickmaker's modest loaf to the elite's honey cakes. A labor as essential as the weaver's cloth or the canal's flow. The fields stretch before you, golden under the rising sun, their bounty a testament to the astronomer's charts, which time the planting to the stars' alignment. Your first task is to cut the barley, a grueling process that begins as the sky brightens. You bend low, your sickle slicing through the stalks, their dry, sharp edges scratching your hands. The air is thick with the scent of cut grain and the dust kicked up by your movements, a contrast to the weaver's wool-scented workshop. Each stroke is a strain, your back aching, your arms burning as you gather armfuls of stalks into bundles, tying them with straw. The sun climbs, the air growing hotter, and sweat beads on your brow, mixing with the dust to form a gritty film on your skin. The work is relentless, the fields vast, and the overseer's voice carries across the rows, urging speed to meet the day's quota. This is not the quiet precision of the astronomer's stylus, or the rhythmic clack of the weaver's loom, but a physical battle against the earth, a hardship that mirrors the brickmaker's toil, and underscores why surviving a day in Babylon's fields was a test of endurance. As the morning progresses, you haul the bundled stalks to a threshing floor, a flat, packed circle of earth where the grain will be separated. The air is heavy with dust, the scent of barley overwhelming, and you wield a wooden flail, beating the stalks to loosen the kernels. Your arms ache, your tunic clings damply to your skin, and the flies buzz around you, drawn by the sweat and grain. The air carries the rhythmic thud of flails and the soft chatter of your fellow workers, their hands as scarred as yours, their lives bound by the same relentless cycle. The grain you harvest will fill the granaries that supply the household we visited, where the matron kneads dough, and the temple, where priests offer bread to the gods, guided by the astronomer's omens. Your labor connects to theirs, a thread in Babylon's tapestry, yet the hardship of the field's sun. Dust, an endless bending sets your life apart, a struggle as grueling as the canal workers' muddy toil. Midday brings a brief pause, a moment of respite under a sparse reed awning near the field's edge. The air is hot, the sun merciless, and you sit on the dry earth, eating a simple meal of flatbread and dried dates, the bread coarse like the brickmakers. The dates a small sweetness against the day's labor. You share a clay jug of water, its contents warm but vital, a faint echo of the canal's life-giving flow. The air carries the rustle of barley stalks and the distant lowing of oxen, a soothing backdrop despite the ache in your back. The contrast with the household is clear there. The matron worked in the shade. Here, you toil under the open sky, your hands scarred by stalks rather than clay. Yet both labors sustain Babylon, your grain feeding the city as surely as the weaver's cloth clothes it. The air is heavy with the knowledge that the harvest must continue, the fields unforgiving, their bounty the city's lifeblood. The afternoon is spent threshing and winnowing, tossing the grain into the air with a wooden scoop to let the breeze carry away the chaff. The air is thick with dust, stinging your eyes and coating your throat, and your arms tremble from the repetitive motion. The sun beats down, the heat reflecting off the earth, and your tunic is soaked. It's linen woven by hands we followed clinging to your skin. The work is monotonous, each toss a test of endurance, yet vital. For a failed harvest could mean hunger for the households, temples, and palaces we've explored. The air carries the distant hum of the city vendors, canals, the faint chant of priests reminding you of the astronomer's role. Whose star charts ensured this harvest's timing? Your labor, like the canal workers, is a foundation of Babylon's survival. Its hardship a reminder of why life here was a daily challenge, as grueling in its own way as the slaves' toil we first met. As evening falls, the fields glow with the soft orange of dusk, the air cooler, tinged with the scent of cut grain and the faint smoke of village fires. You gather the last of the grain into baskets, your hands raw, your body weary, and haul them to a cart bound for the city's granaries. The air is filled with the soft crunch of stalks underfoot and the quiet murmurs of your crew, their faces etched with exhaustion. You feel a fleeting pride in the baskets filled, knowing they'll feed the households. In temples, yet the hardship lingers, your back bent, your hands scarred, the sun's heat still heavy in your bones. You return to your hut, your legs heavy, and share a simple dinner: barley porridge, bread, a sip of beer, the air warm with the closeness of your family, their voices a soft comfort after the day's toil. As you lie down on your reed mat, the earth firm beneath you, the air carries the faint rustle of barley fields and the distant lap of the canal, a sound tying your labor to the city's rhythm. Your hands, cracked and sore, rest at your sides, and your mind drifts to tomorrow's harvest, the endless cycle of sickle and stalk. This is the life of a Babylonian grain harvester, a life of sun and dust, of sweat and survival, woven into the city's sustenance, from the weaver's cloth to the astronomer's stars. Let the gentle rustle of the fields and the stillness of the night carry you into the quiet of history, before we step back into the sun-scorched fields and bustling streets of Babylon. We pause to invite you to join us on this journey through history. If you're finding solace in these tales of ancient lives, please like, subscribe, and share this video from the Sleepless Historian. We craft each story with care, ensuring every detail is factually rooted to bring you the real Babylon. And your support keeps us motivated to uncover more of history's quiet rhythms. As the gold and barley of the harvester's fields fades, it's grain bound for the city's granaries. We move from the open plains to the crowded markets and mud-brick homes of Babylon. The year remains the mid-2nd millennium BCE, and the air is warm, thick with the scent of spices, the faint jingle of coins, and the distant splash of the Euphrates, whose canals sustained the crops we followed. Babylon's story, as we've explored and what it was really like to live in ancient Babylon and more, is a tapestry of hardship and craft, from the brickmaker's mud to the weaver's loom, from the astronomer as stars to the harvester as sickle, all woven together to sustain the jewel of Mesopotamia. Tonight, We leave the fields where grain fed the city and enter the world of a tax collector, a figure both essential and despised, whose work ensured the wealth that built the ziggurats and clothed the elite. Imagine yourself as this collector, your days shaped by the weight of clay tablets and the tension of confrontation, your hands tallying the city's dues. Let us walk through a day in your life step by step and feel the relentless burden of a role that connects the harvester as grain to the palace, as coffers a hardship of mind and spirit that echoes the physical toil of Babylon's laborers. Picture yourself waking in the early morning in a modest mud brick house in Babylon's administrative quarter near the bustling markets. Your bed is a woven reed mat, its fibers softened by use, a step above the harvester's dusty pallet, but far from the elite's carved beds. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of clay walls and the faint aroma of last night's lentil stew, shared with your family, a spouse, perhaps, or a scribe apprentice. The room hums with the city's awakening of vendors' call, the creak of a cart, the distant splash of a canal tended by workers we met. Your hands, unscarred but ink-stained from years of record-keeping, ache slightly as you rise, pulling on a linen tunic woven, perhaps, by hands like those we followed, its fabric plain, but neatly hemmed, a sign of your status. The air carries the weight of your day, the market waiting with its debts and disputes. You step into a small office within your home, the air thick with the musty scent of clay tablets stacked on wooden shelves. Your tools are simple but precise: a bone stylus, a stack of damp clay tablets, and a bronze scale for weighing silver or barley. The air is filled with the faint glow of an oil lamp, its oily scent mingling with the dust of the tablets, each etched with cuneiform records of taxes owed. You review yesterday's tallies, your stylus scratching corrections. The task as meticulous as the astronomer S-star charts, but grounded in the city's wealth, not its heavens. Outside, the market stirs the jingle of coins, the shouts of traders, the rustle of barley sacks from the harvester's fields, and you prepare to collect the king's dues, a task that funds the palace we explored, where elite feasts were held, and the temples, where astronomers read the stars. Your first task is to visit the market, where merchants owe taxes on their goods. You walk through Babylon's crowded streets, the air heavy with the scent of spices, grilled fish, and the faint dust of sun-baked clay. Your tunic brushes against passers-by, farmers, weavers, harvesters, their faces wary as they see your tablet and stylus, symbols of the king's reach. You approach a grain merchant, his stall piled with sacks from the fields we visited, and check your tablet, its cuneiform listing his debt in barley or silver. The air is tense, his voice sharp as he argues the amount, but you remain calm, your words measured, knowing a mistake could anger the palace or the people. The work is not physically grueling like the harvesters, but the mental strain is relentless. Each confrontation a test of patience, each tablet a burden of responsibility that echoes the brickmaker's endless toil. As the morning progresses, you move to a potter's stall, his wares perhaps crafted by hands we met stacked neatly for sale. The air is filled with the clink of clay vessels and the chatter of buyers, but your presence quiets the crowd. You weigh his silver on your scale, the metal cool in your hands, its shine born from mines like those in distant lands. The merchant's eyes narrow, his payment short, and the air grows heavier, the threat of a fine or seizure unspoken but felt. Your hands, steady but tense, record the transaction, the stylus pressing into the clay with a soft scratch. The market connects to the lives we've explored. The harvester's grain fills these sacks, the weaver's cloth wraps them, the canal's water grows them, yet your role is one of isolation. Your work vital, but resented, a hardship of social tension rather than physical labor, underscoring why surviving a day in Babylon's service was a challenge. Midday brings a brief pause, a moment of quiet in a shaded alley near the market. The air is hot, the sun high, and you sit on a stone bench, eating a simple meal of flatbread, dates, and salted fish. The bread softer than the harvester's, but plain compared to the elite's feasts. You sip water from a clay jug, its taste earthy, a faint echo of the canal's life-giving flow. The air carries the market's hum, vendors haggling, the rustle of sacks, the distant chant of priests, and you review your tablets, your hands stained with ink and dust. The contrast with the household is clear there. The matron managed her kitchen, Here, you manage the city's wealth, both labors essential yet worlds apart. The air is heavy with the weight of your role, the resentment of those you tax a constant pressure. A mental toil as grueling as the harvester's sun-scorched fields. The afternoon is spent visiting households, collecting taxes in barley or goods from those who cannot pay in silver. You knock on a mud-brick door, perhaps one woven with blankets from the weaver's loom, and face a family, their eyes weary like the brickmakers. The air is thick with tension as you tally their dead, your stylus scratching on the tablet. The numbers unforgiving. Some offer grain from the harvester's fields, others a woven cloth or a clay pot. Each item a piece of Babylon's labor, from canals to looms. Your work funds the palace's feasts, the temple's offerings, and the astronomer's charts, yet it isolates you. The cities scorn a burden heavier than the canal worker's mud. The air grows humid, the sun's heat relentless, and your tunic clings to your skin. The weight of your satchel a constant reminder of the day's unending demands. As evening falls, the market quiets, the air cooler, tinged with the scent of oil lamps and the distant smoke of cooking fires. You return to your office, your hands sore from writing, your mind weary from disputes. The air is filled with the soft scratch of your stylus as you finalize the day S records. Each tablet a testament to the city's wealth, built on the labor of brickmakers, harvesters, and weavers. You walk home, the streets now calm. The faint splash of the canal a reminder of the water that ties Babylon together. Dinner is a shared meal of barley stew, bread, and beer. The air warm with your family's quiet voices, a small comfort after the day's tension. As you lie down on your reed mat, the air still, filled with the faint scent of clay. In the distant hum of the city, your hands rest, the stylus still. Your mind drifts to tomorrow's rounds, the endless cycle of taxes and tablets. This is the life of a Babylonian tax collector, a life of precision and pressure, of ink and isolation, woven into the city's wealth, from the harvester's grain to the palace's splendor. Let the gentle scratch of the stylus and the stillness of the night carry you into the quiet of history. Before we step through the grand gates of Babylon, where the city's pulse meets the world beyond, we invite you to join us in this journey through history's quiet corners. If these tales of ancient lives soothe your mind, please like, subscribe, and share this video from the Sleepless Historian. We pour care into crafting each story, grounding every detail in the truth of Babylon's past. And your support fuels our passion to bring more of these forgotten rhythms to life. As the ink-stained tablets of the tax collectors settle into the quiet of Babylon's archives, their numbers tallying the city's wealth, we turn from the crowded markets to the towering walls that guard the jewel of Mesopotamia. The year remains the mid-2nd millennium BCE, and the air is warm, thick with the scent of sun-baked clay, the faint dust of passing caravans, and the distant splash of the Euphrates, whose canals sustain the fields we explored. Babylon's story, as we've woven in what it was really like to live in ancient Babylon and more, is a tapestry of hardship and duty. From the brickmaker's mud to the harvester's sickle from the weaver, as loom to the astronomer as stars, all bound by the struggle to sustain a city of gods and men. Tonight, we leave the tax collector's tense rounds and stand at the Ishtar Gate, where a gatekeeper keeps silent vigil, ensuring the city's safety. Imagine yourself as this gatekeeper, your days shaped by the weight of vigilance and the rhythm of the city's comings and goings. Your labor a quiet but vital thread in Babylon's fabric. Let us walk through a day in your life step by step and feel the solitary burden of role that guards the city, connecting the harvester's grain to the market's bustle, a hardship of watchfulness that echoes the trials of Babylon's laborers. Picture yourself waking in the dim pre-dawn light, in a small chamber carved into the thick mud brick wall near the Ishtar Gate. Its blue glazed tiles a distant glow in the morning haze. Your bed is a simple reed mat, its fibers coarse against your skin, much like the harvester's dusty pallet, a far cry from the elite's cushioned beds. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of clay and the faint tang of smoke from a nearby brazier, lit to warm the guards' quarters. You share this space with other gatekeepers, their soft snores blending with the distant hum of the city stirring beyond the walls. Your body is stiff from yesterday's long watch, your hands rough from gripping a wooden spear. And you rise, pulling on a linen tunic perhaps woven by hands we met its fabric plain. but sturdy, marked with the dust of the gate. The air carries the promise of another day of vigilance, the city's safety resting on your watchful eyes. You step into the gatehouse, a narrow room overlooking the Ishtar Gate, its lion-adorned tiles gleaming faintly in the dawn. The air is thick with the scent of baked clay and the faint dust of the road beyond, where caravans will soon pass. Your tools are simple: a wooden spear, its tip bronze and worn, a clay tablet for recording entries, and a horn to signal alarms. The air is filled with the soft creak of the gate's massive cedar beams and the distant clatter of carts approaching from the countryside, carrying grain like that harvested by hands we followed. Your task is to guard the gate, checking merchants, travelers, and farmers, ensuring no threat enters the city that relies on the tax collector's wealth, the weaver's cloth, and the canal's water. The gate is Babylon's threshold, a place where the harvester's grain meets the market, and your role, though quiet, is as vital as the brickmaker's toil in building the city's walls. Your first task is to open the gate at dawn, a ritual that marks the city's awakening. You climb to the gatehouse platform, the air cool against your skin, and help your fellow guards push the heavy cedar doors, their creak echoing in the stillness. The air fills with the scent of dust kicked up by the first travelers, merchants with sacks of barley, nomads with flocks, all passing under the gate's blue tiles laid by brickmakers we met. You stand watch, your spear at your side, checking each passerby against your tablet, your eyes scanning for signs of trouble. The air is tense, the weight of responsibility heavy, for a single lapse could let danger into the city. Unlike the tax collector, whose hardship was mental strain, yours is the quiet stress of vigilance, a test of endurance as grueling as the harvester's sun-scorched labor, underscoring why surviving a day in Babylon's service was no small feat. As the morning progresses, the gate grows busier, the air thick with the hum of voices, merchants haggling, farmers grumbling, the clink of coins like those tallied by the tax collector. You question a trader, his cart laden with grain from the fields we explored, his papers etched with cuneiform you barely read. The air smells of barley dust and the faint sweat of oxen, and you wave him through, your hand steady but your mind alert. A dispute arises, a nomad argues his toll, his voice sharp, and the air grows heavier, your calm response echoing the tax collector's measured words. Your tunic is dusted with the road's grit, your spear a constant weight, and the sun climbs, its heat reflecting off the gate's tiles. The work is not physically brutal like the harvester's, but the mental toll is relentless. Each face a potential threat, each moment a test of your resolve, a hardship that mirrors the brickmaker's endless rhythm. Midday brings a brief pause, a moment of quiet in the gatehouse's shade. The air is hot, the sun high, and you sit on a stone bench, eating a simple meal of flatbread, dates, and salted fish, the bread coarse like the harvester's. The dates a small sweetness against the day's strain. You sip water from a clay jug, its taste earthy, a faint echo of the canal's life-giving flow. The air carries the distant bustle of the market and the soft chant of priests from the temple, where astronomers we met read the stars. The contrast with the household is clear there. The matron worked in comfort. Here you stand exposed to the sun and scrutiny, your role guarding the city as vital as the weaver-esque cloth or the harvester-esque grain. The air is heavy with the weight of vigilance, the city's safety resting on your shoulders, a burden as taxing as the canal workers' mud. The afternoon is spent managing the gate's peak traffic as caravans arrive from distant lands, their goods taxed by hands we followed. The air is thick with dust, the scent of spices, wool, and sweat overwhelming, and you check tablets, question travelers, and signal guards with your horn when needed. Your eyes strain, your legs ache from standing, and the heat presses down, your tunic clinging to your skin. The gate connects to the lives we've explored. The harvester's grain passes through. The weaver's cloth wraps the goods. The astronomer's omens guide the trader's journeys, yet your solitude sets you apart. Your watch a silent sacrifice for Babylon's safety. The air grows humid, the crowd relentless, and your spear feels heavier. Each moment a reminder of the hardship of guarding a city that thrives on the labor of others. As evening falls, the gate quiets, the air cooler, tinged with the scent of oil lamps and the distant smoke of cooking fires. You close the cedar doors, their creak a final note in the day's rhythm, and record the last entries on your tablet, Your hands sore from gripping the stylus. The air is filled with the soft hum of the city settling vendors closing stalls, the splash of canals, the faint chant of priests, and you feel a quiet pride in knowing Babylon is secure, its gates guarded by your vigilance. You return to your chamber, your body weary, and share a simple dinner: barley porridge, bread, a sip of beer, the air warm with the quiet of your fellow guards. As you lie down on your reed mat, the air still, filled with the faint scent of clay and the distant murmur of the city, your hands rest. The spear still. Your mind drifts to tomorrow's watch, the endless vigil of the gate. This is the life of a Babylonian gatekeeper, a life of silence and vigilance, of dust and duty, woven into the city's safety, from the harvester's fields to the astronomer's stars. Let the gentle creak of the gate and the stillness of the night carry you into the quiet of history. The heavy cedar gates of Babylon swing shut, their creak fading into the evening stillness, as the gatekeeper's vigilant watch secures the city's heart. The year remains the mid-2nd millennium BCE, and the air is warm, thick, with the scent of sun-baked earth, the faint tang of wood smoke from nearby kilns, and the distant murmur of the Euphrates, whose waters sustain the fields and canals we've explored. Babylon's story, as we've woven in what it was really like to live in ancient Babylon and more, is a mosaic of hardship and craft, from the brickmaker's mud to the harvester's sickle, from the weaver, as loom to the gatekeeper as silent vigil, all bound by the struggle to sustain a city of gods and men. Tonight, we step from the towering Ishtar Gate into a small workshop in the city's artisan quarter, where a potter shapes clay into vessels that hold the grain, water, and offerings of Babylon's daily life. Imagine yourself as this potter, your days shaped by the rhythm of wheel and kiln, your hands molding the earth that connects the harvester's fields to the household's hearth. Let us walk through a day in your life, step by step, and feel the quiet toil of a craft that shapes Babylon's needs, a hardship of precision and patience that echoes the relentless labor of the city's workers. Picture yourself waking in the dim pre-dawn light, in a modest mud brick room above your workshop, nestled among Babylon's bustling streets. Your bed is a woven reed mat, its fibers worn but soft, a humble echo of the gatekeeper's sparse chamber, far simpler than the elite's carved beds. The air is cool, heavy with the earthy scent of clay stored below and the faint aroma of last night. As barley stew, shared with your family, perhaps a spouse or apprentices learning your trade. The room hums with the city's early stirrings of vendors' call, the splash of a canal, the distant creak of a cart carrying grain like that reaped by hands we followed. Your hands, rough with calluses from years at the wheel, ache slightly as you rise, pulling on a linen tunic woven, perhaps, by hands we met its fabric dusted with clay. A badge of your craft, the air carries the promise of another day shaping vessels, each one destined for the households, markets, or temples we've explored. You descend to your workshop, a small, shaded space with mud brick walls and a low roof. Its air thick with the musty scent of damp clay and the faint smoke of a kiln cooling from yesterday as firing. Your tools are simple but vital: a wooden potter's wheel, its surface worn smooth, a bone scraper for shaping, and a clay jar of water to keep the clay pliable. The air is filled with the soft creak of the wheel as you test it, your foot nudging its base, and the faint rustle of straw used to cushion drying pots. Outside, the city wakes the jingle of coins from the tax collector's rounds, the hum of merchants in the market, but your world is the clay. It's cool, slick texture contrasts to the gatekeeper's dusty gate. Your task is to shape vessels, jars for the harvester's grain, bowls for the household's meals, urns for the temple's offerings, a labor as essential as the canal worker's water. Yet its quiet precision hides the hardship of endless repetition. Your first task is to prepare the clay, a process as familiar as breathing. You kneel by a pit in the workshop's corner, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth, and knead the clay with your hands, mixing in water from a canal-fed jar. The clay is cold, clinging to your fingers, its texture smooth but demanding, requiring strength to work into a pliable mass. The air grows warmer as the sun rises, filtering through a reed mat over the window, and a fine layer of clay dust settles on your tunic, much like the harvester's barley dust. You carry the clay to the wheel, your arms aching from the weight, and begin to spin it. The wheels creak, a steady rhythm that echoes the weaver's loom. The work is slow, each vessel requiring focus to avoid cracks, a mental strain as taxing as the tax collector's disputes, underscoring why surviving a day in Babylon's crafts was a test of endurance. As the morning progresses, you shape a series of jars, your hands guiding the clay as it rises under your fingers. The wheels spin a hypnotic pulse. The air is filled with the soft squish of clay and the faint splash of water. As you smooth each piece, your hands slick and stained. The workshop is small, the air warm and humid, the scent of clay and straw mingling with the faint sweat of your effort. Outside, the market hums, merchants selling grain, traders passing through the Ishtar gate, yet your focus is inward, on the vessels that will hold the harvester's barley or the household's water. The air connects to the lives we've explored. The canal's water moistens your clay. The weaver's cloth wraps your finished pots. The astronomer's omens guide the planting that fills them. Yet the hardship lies in the endless cycle, your hands never resting. Each jar a small victory in a day of relentless toil. Midday brings a brief pause, a moment of quiet in the workshop's shade. The air's hot, the sun high, and you sit by the door eating a simple meal of flatbread dates and a smear of sesame paste. The bread course, like the gatekeepers, the dates, a small sweetness against the day's labor. You sip water from a clay jar, perhaps one you shaped. Its taste earthy, a reminder of the canal's flow. The air carries the distant bustle of the market and the soft chant of priests from the temple, where your urns hold sacred offerings. The contrast with the household is subtle there. The matron cooked with your bowls. Here, you shape them, both labors sustaining Babylon's rhythm. The air is heavy with the knowledge that the day's work is only half done, the kiln waiting, its heat a looming challenge that echoes the brickmaker's fiery toil. The afternoon is spent firing the kiln, a grueling task that tests your endurance. You stack the dried pots carefully, their clay still soft, and feed the kiln with dried reeds, the air thick with the acrid smell of smoke and the roar of flames. Your hands, stained with clay and soot, tremble as you tend the fire, the heat searing your skin, a hardship as intense as the harvester's sun-scorched fields. The air grows humid, the workshop stifling, and you check each pot, ensuring no cracks form, a precision akin to the astronomer's star charts. The kiln's glow lights the room, its heat a contrast to the gatekeeper's cool gatehouse. Yet both roles guard Babylon's needs, your pots holding its wealth, his vigilance its safety. The air carries the faint hum of the city vendors, canals. Prayer's a reminder of the lives your work sustains. As evening falls, the kiln cools, the air cooler, tinged with the scent of baked clay and the distant smoke of cooking fires. You remove the pots, their surfaces hard and smooth, and stack them for the market. Your hands raw from the day's labor. The air is filled with the soft clink of clay and the quiet satisfaction of a finished batch. Each vessel destined for the households, temples, or merchants we've met. You clean the workshop, the wheel still, and return to your room, your body weary, your hands aching but skilled. Dinner is a shared meal of barley porridge, bread, and beer. The air warm with your family's quiet voices. As you lie down on your reed mat, the air still, filled with the faint scent of clay and the distant hum of Babylon, your hands rest. The wheel silent. Your mind drifts to tomorrow's clay, the endless cycle of shaping and firing. This is the life of a Babylonian potter, a life of earth and patience, of heat and hardship, woven into the city's needs. From the harvester's grain to the temple's offerings, let the gentle creak of the wheel and the stillness of the night carry you into the quiet of history. The quiet clink of the potter's clay vessels fades into the stillness of Babylon's evening, their smooth surfaces destined to hold the city's grain and water. The year remains the mid-2nd millennium BCE, and the air is warm, thick with the scent of river mud, the faint sweetness of blooming reeds, and the distant murmur of the Euphrates, whose banks nurture the fields we've explored. Babylon's story as we've woven in what it was really like to live in ancient Babylon, and more is a tapestry of relentless labor and quiet craft from the brickmaker, as mud to the harvester, as sickle from the weaver, as loom to the potter's wheel, all bound by the hardship that sustained the jewel of Mesopotamia. Tonight, we step from the potter's dusty workshop to the marshy edges of the Euphrates, where a reed cutter toils to harvest the stalks that build homes, fuel kilns, and weave the mats of Babylon's daily life. Imagine yourself as this cutter, your days shaped by the rhythm of blade and river. Your hands scarred by the reeds that connect the potter-esque clay to the household-esque comfort. Let us walk through a day in your life step by step and feel the unseen toil of a labor that binds the city's needs. A hardship as grueling as the harvester's fields, underscoring why surviving a day in Babylon was a test of endurance. Picture yourself waking in the pre-dawn gloom in a simple reed hut on the riverbank, far from the city's mud brick walls. Your bed is a mat of dried reeds, perhaps cut by your own hands, its fibers coarse against your skin, much like the potter's woven pallet, but damp from the river's mist. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of wet mud and the sharp tang of reeds, a stark contrast to the elite's perfumed chambers. You share this hut with your family or fellow cutters, their soft breaths mingling with the distant croak of frogs along the Euphrates. Your body aches from yesterday's work, your hands rough with calluses from wielding a bronze knife, and you rise, pulling on a linen tunic woven, perhaps, by hands we met its fabric patched and stained with river mud. The air carries the promise of another day in the marshes, the reeds waiting to be harvested for the city's needs. You step outside, the air thick with the scent of water and the faint mist rising from the river, its flow sustained by the canal workers' toil. Your tools are simple: a bronze knife, its blade dulled from use, a woven basket for carrying reeds, and a clay jug for water. You join your fellow cutters, their faces shadowed in the dim light, their voices low to save strength for the day's labor. The air is filled with the soft rustle of reeds swaying in the early breeze, and the faint splash of water against the bank, a reminder of the canal's life-giving flow. Your task is to cut reeds for mats, roofs, and fuel, essential for the households we explored, where the potter's jars hold grain and the weaver's cloth warms beds. The marsh stretches before you, its green stalks towering, their roots deep in the mud that mirrors the brickmaker's pits. Your first task is to wade into the marsh, the cold water biting your ankles, the mud sucking at your bare feet. The air is heavy with the scent of wet reeds and decaying plants, and you swing your knife, its blade slicing through the fibrous stalks with a soft hiss. Each cut is a strain, your hands gripping the knife tightly, the reed's sharp edges scratching your skin. The sun rises, the air growing warmer, and sweat beads on your brow, mixing with the marsh's damp to form a gritty film. The work is relentless, the marsh vast, and the overseer's voice carries across the water, urging speed to meet the day's quota. This is not the quiet precision of the potter's wheel or the gatekeeper's vigilance, but a physical battle against the river's edge, a hardship as grueling as the harvester's fields, underscoring why surviving a day in Babylon's marshes was a challenge of body and spirit. As the morning progresses, you bundle the cut reeds, tying them with strips of their own fibers, your arms aching from the weight. The air is thick with the scent of cut stalks and the buzz of insects drawn by the damp. You haul the bundles to the bank, your basket heavy, the mud clinging to your legs like the potter's clay. The air carries the distant lowing of oxen and the splash of canal water, connecting your labor to the fields that feed Babylon. Your hands, scarred and bleeding from the reed's edges, move with a steady rhythm, each bundle a step toward roofing a home or fueling a kiln like the potter's. The contrast with the household is clear there. The matron used your reeds for mats. Here, you wrestle them from the marsh, a toil as essential as the weaver's threads, but far wetter and more grueling. Midday brings a brief pause, a moment of respite on the riverbank's edge, under a sparse canopy of reeds. The air is hot, the sun relentless, and you sit on the damp earth, eating a simple meal of flatbread and dried dates, the bread coarse like the harvester's. The dates a small sweetness against the day's labor. You sip water from a clay jug, perhaps shaped by the potter, its taste earthy, a reminder of the canal's flow. The air carries the rustle of reeds and the faint croak of frogs, a soothing backdrop despite the ache in your shoulders. The contrast with the tax collector's life is stark. His burden was mental strain, yours is physical, your hands scarred by reeds rather than ink. Yet both labors sustain Babylon, your reeds roofing the homes that hold the potter's jars. The air is heavy with the knowledge that the marsh waits, its reeds endless, their harvest a constant demand. The afternoon is spent cutting deeper in the marsh, where the water reaches your knees, the air thick with the smell of mud and the hum of insects. Your knife slices through thicker stalks, each cut a test of strength. Your legs sinking into the mud, your tunic soaked and heavy. The sun's heat reflects off the water, and your hands bleed from small cuts. The reed's edges unforgiving. The air carries the distant hum of the city vendors, canals. The faint chant of priests guided by the astronomer's stars, yet your world is the marsh. Its hardship a silent sacrifice for Babylon's needs. Your labor connects to the lives we've explored, the harvester as grain fills the potter as jars. The weaver's cloth wraps your bundles. The gatekeeper's vigilance protects the city you supply, yet the physical toll sets you apart. A reminder of why surviving a day in Babylon was a relentless struggle. As evening falls, the marsh glows with the soft orange of dusk, the air cooler, tinged with the scent of river water and the distant smoke of village fires. You haul the last bundles to the bank, your body weary, your hands raw, and load them onto a cart bound for the city's markets. The air is filled with the soft rustle of reeds and the quiet murmurs of your crew, their faces etched with exhaustion. You feel a fleeting pride in the bundles stacked, knowing they'll roof homes or fuel kilns. Yet the hardship lingers, your hands scarred, your legs heavy. The marsh is damp, still clinging to your skin. You return to your hut, your body aching, and share a simple dinner: barley porridge, bread. A sip of beer, the air warm with the closeness of your family. As you lie down on your reed mat, the air still, filled with the faint scent of mud and the distant lap of the river, your hands rest. The knife still, your mind drifts to tomorrow's harvest, the endless cycle of cutting and carrying. This is the life of a Babylonian reed cutter, a life of water and toil, of mud and hardship, woven into the city's fabric. From the potter's jars to the household's mats, let the gentle rustle of the reeds and the stillness of the night carry you into the quiet of history. The rustling reeds of the riverbank fade into the evening's stillness, their fibrous stalks bound for the homes and kilns of Babylon, woven into the city's daily life. The year remains the mid-2nd millennium BCE, and the air is warm, thick, with the scent of burning incense, the faint dust of clay tablets, and the distant lap of the Euphrates, whose waters nourish the fields and marshes we've explored. Babylon's story, as we've woven in what it was really like to live in ancient Babylon and more, is a tapestry of hardship and devotion, from the brickmaker as mud to the reed cutter as marsh, from the harvester as sickle to the potter as wheel, all bound by the struggle to sustain a city where gods and men intertwine. Tonight, we step from the muddy banks of the Euphrates to the sacred precincts of the temple, where a scribe labors to record the divine will, their tablets preserving the city's prayers and accounts. Imagine yourself as this temple scribe, your days shaped by the rhythm of stylus and clay, your hands etching the words that connect the reed cutter as mats to the astronomer as stars. Let us walk through a day in your life step by step and feel the quiet burden of a role that guards Babylon's spiritual heart, a hardship of precision and reverence that echoes the relentless toil of the city's laborers. Picture yourself waking in the early morning in a small chamber within the temple complex, near the towering Etemenenki, its bricks laid by hands we followed. Your bed is a woven reed mat, perhaps crafted by the reed cutter, its fibers soft but simple, a humble echo of the potter's resting place, far from the elite's carved beds. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of myrrh from nearby altars and the faint must of clay tablets stored in them. Archives. You share this space with other scribes and priests, their soft breaths blending with the distant chant of morning rituals. Your hands, ink-stained from years of writing, ache slightly as you rise, pulling on a linen robe woven, perhaps by hands we met its fabric plain but clean, a mark of your sacred role. The air carries the promise of another day of recording prayers, omens, and accounts. Your work is vital to the temple as the harvester as grain is to the city as granaries. You step into the temple's scriptorium, a shaded room with mud brick walls, its air thick with the scent of damp clay and the faint glow of oil lamps. Your tools are simple but sacred, a bone stylus, its tip worn smooth, a stack of damp clay tablets, and a wooden frame for drying them. The air is filled with the soft scratch of styluses from fellow scribes, and the distant hum of priests preparing offerings, their voices echoing off the bricks laid by workers we followed. Your task is to record the temple's activities, prayers to Marduk, omens from the astronomer, offerings of grain from the harvester as fields, all etched in cuneiform to preserve Babylon. S. Divine order. The scriptorium is your world. It's quite a contrast to the reed cutter's marshy labor. Yet your work connects to theirs, your tablets resting on their mats, your prayers tied to the city's sustenance. Your first task is to transcribe a priest's dictation, a prayer to be offered at dawn. You sit at a low table, the clay tablet cool under your fingers, and press your stylus into its surface, forming tight wedges with practiced precision. The air smells of lamp oil and clay, the faint incense from the altar drifting through the room. Each stroke is deliberate, your hands steady but tense, for a mistake could anger the gods or the high priest. The sun rises, its light filtering through a reed mat over the window, and a fine layer of clay dust settles on your robe, much like the potter's workshop. The work is not physically grueling like the reed cutters, but the mental strain is relentless, each tablet a test of accuracy, a hardship. As taxing as the harvester's fields underscoring, why surviving a day in Babylon's sacred service was a challenge of mind and spirit. As the morning progresses, you record the temple's accounts, grain from the harvester, reeds from the cutter, pots from the potter, all taxed by hands we followed. The air is filled with the soft scratch of your stylus and the murmur of priests discussing omens, their words guided by the astronomer's charts. Your hands ache from pressing into the clay, your eyes strain in the dim light, and the air grows warmer, the room humid with the breath of scribes. Outside, the city hums, vendors in the market, the splash of canals, the creak of the Ishtar gate guarded by hands we met, yet your focus is inward, on the tablets that preserve Babylon's spiritual and economic life. Your work connects to the lives we've explored, the harvester as grain fills the temple. As stores the weaver's cloth wraps your tablets, the gatekeeper's vigilance protects the city. You serve, yet the pressure of perfection sets you apart, a silent toil in the god's shadow. Midday brings a brief pause, a moment of quiet in the scriptorium's shade. The air is hot, the sun high, and you sit by a courtyard fountain, eating a simple meal of flatbread, dates, and salted fish. The bread softer than the reed cutters, but plain compared to the elite's feasts. You sip water from a clay cup, perhaps shaped by the pirate's taste, earthy, a reminder of the canal's flow. The air carries the distant chant of priests and the soft rustle of reeds, a soothing backdrop despite the ache in your wrists. The contrast with the household is subtle there. The matron managed her kitchen. Here, you manage the gods' words, both labors essential yet worlds apart. The air is heavy with the weight of your role, the fear of a misplaced wedge, a constant pressure, a mental hardship as grueling as the harvester's sun-scorched toil. The afternoon is spent copying an ancient hymn, its words passed down through generations, your stylus tracing each wedge with care. The air is thick with the scent of clay and the faint smoke of lamps, their wicks burning low. Your hands tremble from the strain, your robe dusted with clay, and the hymn's rhythm becomes a meditation, though the fear of air lingers. The air carries the distant hum of the city vendors, canals, the creak of gates, yet your world is the tablet, its surface a canvas for the god's will. Your work connects to the temple we explored, where priests offer the grain, and reeds you record, guided by the astronomer's omens, into the household, where your tablets ensure the flow of goods. The hardship lies in the silence, the endless precision, a burden as heavy as the reed cutter's marshy labor, a reminder of why surviving a day in Babylon was a test of endurance. As evening falls, the temple grows quieter, the air cooler, tinged with the scent of incense and the distant smoke of cooking fires. You finish your tablet, wrapping it in linen perhaps woven by hands we met to protect it until it's baked, and carry it to the archives, your hands sore from the day's work. The air is filled with the soft hum of priests chanting, and the faint splash of the courtyard fountain, a reminder of the canal's life-giving flow. You feel a quiet pride in the tablets stacked, knowing they preserve Babylon's prayers and wealth. Yet the hardship lingers, your hands aching, your mind weary from the weight of divine duty. You return to your chamber, your body tired, and share a simple dinner, barley porridge, bread, a sip of beer, the air warm with the quiet of your fellow scribes. As you lie down on your reed mat, the air still, filled with the faint scent of clay and the distant chant of the temple, your hands rest. The stylus still. Your mind drifts to tomorrow's tablets, the endless cycle of writing and worship. This is the life of a Babylonian temple scribe, a life of reverence and precision, of clay and hardship, woven into the city's spiritual heart, from the reed cutter's stalks to the astronomer's stars. Let the gentle scratch of the stylus and the stillness of the night carry you into the quiet of history, the quiet scratch of the temple scribe as stylus fades into the stillness of Babylon. As sacred archives, where clay tablets preserve the city's prayers and wealth. The year remains the mid-2nd millennium BCE, and the air is warm, thick with the scent of river water, the faint tang of pitch from sealed boats, and the distant murmur of markets bustling beyond the temple walls. Babylon's story, as we've woven in what it was really like to live in ancient Babylon and more, is a tapestry of hardship and ingenuity, from the brickmaker's mud to the scribe's cuneiform, from the harvester as sickle to the reed cutter as marsh, all bound by the struggle to sustain a city where gods and men converge. Tonight, we step from the temple's shaded scriptorium to the flowing currents of the Euphrates, where a river trader navigates the city's lifeblood, carrying goods that connect the potter's jars to the market's wealth. Imagine yourself as this trader, your days shaped by the rhythm of ore and current, your hands calloused by the perils of the river. Let us walk through a day in your life step by step and feel the precarious toil of a trade that binds the scribe s records to the city s commerce, a hardship of danger and endurance that echoes the relentless labor of Babylon's workers. Picture yourself waking in the pre-dawn gloom, in a small reed hut on the riverbank, near the docks where Babylon's trade flows. Your bed is a woven mat, perhaps crafted by the reed cutter, its fibers damp from the river's mist, a humble echo of the scribe's simple palette, far from the elite's carved beds. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of wet reeds and the faint tang of fish, a stark contrast to the temple's incense-filled chambers. You share this hut with your crew or family, their soft breaths blending with the gentle lap of the Euphrates against the shore. Your body aches from yesterday's journey, your hands rough from rowing and hauling cargo, and you rise, pulling on a linen tunic woven, perhaps, by hands we met its fabric patched and stained with river mud. The air carries the promise of another day on the water, the river waiting with its currents and dangers. You step outside, the air thick with the scent of water and the faint pitch used to seal your reed boat. Your tools are simple but vital: a wooden oar, its handle worn smooth, a woven basket for goods, and a clay jar for water, perhaps shaped by the potter. You join your crew at the dock, their faces shadowed in the dim light, their voices low to conserve energy for the river's demands. The air is filled with the soft creak of boats bobbing and the distant splash of fish, a reminder of the canal's life-giving flow. Your task is to transport goods, grain from the harvester, pots from the potter, reeds from the cutter down the Euphrates to Babylon's markets or beyond. A trade as essential as the scribe's tablets in sustaining the city's economy. The river stretches before you, its surface shimmering in the dawn, its currents a challenge that tests your skill and courage. Your first task is to load the boat, a delicate process that begins as the sky brightens. You wade into the shallow water, the cold biting your ankles, and stack sacks of barley reaped by hands we follow alongside clay jars and woven mats. The air smells of wet reeds and the faint dust of grain, and each sack is heavy, your arms straining as you balance the load to keep the boat steady. The sun rises, the air growing warmer, and sweat beads on your brow, mixing with the river's mist to form a gritty film. The work is perilous, the boat rocking with each step, and a single misstep could sink your cargo. A loss as devastating as a scribe's ruined tablet. This is not the quiet precision of the temple or the gatekeeper's vigilance, but a physical battle against the river's flow, a hardship, as grueling as the harvester's fields, underscoring why surviving a day in Babylon's trade was a test of body and nerve. As the morning progresses, you push off from the dock, your oar slicing through the water with a soft splash. The air is thick with the scent of river mud and the buzz of insects, and you row with your crew, your hands gripping the oar, the current pulling against you. The boat is heavy, laden with goods taxed by hands we met, and the river's eddies threaten to tip it, your heart pounding with each sway. The air carries the distant hum of the city vendors at the docks, the creak of the Ishtar gate, and your focus is on the water, navigating bends where reeds cluster, their stalks cut by hands we followed. The contrast with the household is clear there. The matron used your goods. Here, you risk your life to deliver them. A toil as essential as the weaver's cloth, but far more dangerous. Your hands, scarred from splinters, ache with each stroke. The river's unpredictability a constant threat. Midday brings a brief pause, a moment of rest on a sandy riverbank under the shade of a tamarisk tree. The air is hot, the sun relentless, and you sit on the damp earth, eating a simple meal of flatbread and dried fish, the bread coarse like the reed cutters. The fish a sharp taste against the day's labor. You sip water from a clay jar, perhaps the potter's work its taste earthy, a reminder of the canal's flow. The air carries the gentle lap of the river and the faint call of birds, a soothing backdrop despite the ache in your shoulders. The contrast with the scribe's life as stark as burden was mental precision. Yours is physical peril, your hands calloused by oars rather than styluses. Yet both labors sustain Babylon, your cargo filling the markets recorded by his tablets. The air is heavy with the knowledge that the river waits, its currents unforgiving, its dangers a constant demand. The afternoon is spent navigating a treacherous stretch of the Euphrates, where the current quickens and hidden rocks lurk. The air is thick with the smell of water and the faint sweat of your crew, their oars moving in rhythm with yours. Your hands bleed from splinters, your tunic soaked from splashes, and the sun's heat reflects off the river, searing your skin. The boat rocks, the cargo shifting, and you shout warnings, your voice hoarse. The air tense with the risk of capsizing. Your goods grain, pots, reeds connect to the lives we've explored, filling the potter's jars, roofing the household's rooms, funding the temple's offerings recorded by the scribe. The hardship lies in the river's unpredictability, a danger as relentless as the harvester's sun, a reminder of why surviving a day in Babylon was a grueling challenge. The air carries the distant hum of the city, a beacon of your destination. As evening falls, you reach Babylon's docks, the air cooler, tinged with the scent of oil lamps and the distant smoke of cooking fires. You unload the cargo, your arms trembling, the sacks and jars heavy as you stack them for the market, where the tax collector awaits. The air is filled with the soft creak of boats and the chatter of dock workers, their faces weary like yours. You feel a fleeting pride in the goods delivered, knowing they'll fill the households and temples, yet the hardship lingers, your hands raw, your body exhausted. The river's dangers still vivid. You return to your hut, your legs heavy, and share a simple dinner: barley porridge, bread, a sip of beer, the air warm with your crew's quiet voices. As you lie down on your reed mat, the air still, filled with the faint scent of river mud and the gentle lap of the Euphrates, your hands rest. The oar still, your mind drifts to tomorrow's journey, the endless cycle of river and trade. This is the life of a Babylonian river trader, a life of water and peril, of toil and endurance, woven into the city's commerce, from the reed cutter's stalks to the scribe's tablets. Let the gentle lap of the river and the stillness of the night carry you into the quiet of history. As the reed boat of the river trader glides to rest on the docks of Babylon, its cargo of grain and pots unloaded under the fading light of dusk, we pause to reflect on the journey we've taken through the jewel of Mesopotamia. The year remains the mid-2nd millennium BCE, and the air is warm, carrying the scent of river mud, the faint smoke of temple braziers, and the distant rustle of reeds along the Euphrates. Babylon's story, as we've woven in what it was really like to live in ancient Babylon and more, is a tapestry of hardship, craft, and devotion, from the brickmaker's mud to the river trader's perilous currents, from the weaver's loom to the scribe as cuneiform, all bound by the relentless struggle to sustain a city where gods and men intertwined. Before we let the city's hum fade into the night, we invite you to support the sleepless historian by liking, subscribing, and sharing this video. We craft each tale with care, rooting every detail in the truth of Babylon's past. And your support fuels our passion to bring more of history's quiet rhythms to life. Tonight we stand on the banks of the Euphrates, gazing at the ziggurat's silhouette, and draw together the threads of the lives we've explored, reflecting on why living in ancient Babylon was a test of endurance, a mosaic of labor and faith that echoes through time. Let us walk through these reflections, step by step, and ease into the stillness of history, inviting you to rest in its embrace. Picture yourself standing by the river, the air soft with the glow of Babylon's oil lamps, their light glinting off the water that sustained the city's fields and canals. The Euphrates flows gently, its currents carrying the memory of the river trader's oars. the canal workers' muddy toil, and the reed cutters' marshy harvest. Babylon was a city of contrasts. Its towering ziggurats, built by the brickmakers' hands, rose toward the gods, while its markets bustled with the potter's jars and the weaver's cloth. The lives we followed as what it was really like to live in ancient Babylon, and more promise reveal a world where every labor was a thread in the city's fabric, each hardship a testament to the endurance required to survive a single day. The brickmaker, kneading clay in the heat, shaped the walls that housed the elite. The harvester, bent under the sun, reaped the grain that filled the potter's jars. The weaver, threading her loom, clothed the city's people, from priests to traders. These were not lives of legend but of quiet, relentless toil. Their struggle is as vital as the laws of Hammurabi or the omens of the astronomer. Let us begin where we started, with the brickmaker, whose life was a cycle of mud and sweat. The air in his pit was thick with the scent of clay and straw, his hands caked with earth, his back aching from the endless rhythm of molding and firing. This was a hardship of body, a daily test that built the ziggurats and palaces we explored, a reminder of why surviving in Babylon was no small feat. Yet his labor connected to the elite's world, where the palace's shaded courtyards hosted feasts of grain from the harvester's fields, served in pots from the potter's kiln. The air of those feasts was perfumed to stark contrast to the brickmaker's dusty pits. Yet both were bound by Babylon, as rhythm the elite as power resting on the labor as toil, just as the tax collector's tablets tallied the city's wealth. Hammurabi's shadow looms large, his laws carved in stone, a testament to order in a chaotic world. The air in his court was heavy with diplomacy, his decisions shaping the lives of brickmakers and traders alike. His code, etched by scribes like those we followed, ensured the grain tax from the harvester's fields reached the palace, a system as vital as the canals that watered them. The temple, too, was a heart of Babylon, its air thick with incense and the chants of priests, guided by the astronomer's star charts. The temple scribes' stylus, scratching prayers on clay, preserved the divine will, just as the gatekeeper's vigilance at the Ishtar gate protected the city's markets, where the river traders' goods were sold. Each life, from the reed cutter's marsh to the potter's wheel, was a thread in this tapestry, their hardships physical, mental, spiritual woven into the city's survival. The mysteries we uncovered, the secrets beneath the temple, the lost statue of Marduk, the whispered curses added depth to Babylon's story. The air in the ziggurat's shadow was alive with faith, its rituals connecting the scribes' tablets to the commoner's prayers. The astronomer's starlit vigil, tracking omens for the king, mirrored the gatekeeper's watch at the city's edge, both guarding Babylon's order in their own way. The household, with its hearths and reed mats, was the city's quiet core, its air warm with the scent of baking bread from the harvester's grain, stored in the potter's jars, wrapped in the weaver's cloth. These lives, though humble, were the foundation of Babylon's grandeur. Their hardships a reminder of why living here was a daily challenge, as grueling in its repetition as the brickmaker's endless clay, or the river trader's treacherous currents. The river trader's perilous journeys tied the city to the world beyond, his boat carrying the harvester's grain, the potter's jars, and the reed cutter's stalks to markets guarded by the gatekeeper. The air on the Euphrates was thick with danger, each journey a test of courage. Yet it fueled the tax collector's records and the elite's feasts. The canal workers' muddy toil ensured the fields bloomed, while the reed cutter's scarred hands provided the mats that cushioned the scribes' tablets. The potter's wheel spun vessels. For the household, the weaver's loom clothed its people, and the astronomer's omens guided their harvests. Each life was interconnected, their hardships, whether the physical strain of the harvester, the mental precision of the scribe, or the solitary vigilance of the gatekeeper reflecting the relentless endurance required to sustain Babylon's pulse, a truth at the heart of what it was really like to live in ancient Babylon, and more. Now, as we stand by the Euphrates, the air soft with the scent of water and the glow of Babylon's lamps, we see the city as a living whole. The brickmaker's walls sheltered the household, the canal's water fed the harvester's fields, the weaver's cloth warmed the scribe's chamber, the river trader's goods filled the markets guarded by the gatekeeper, the astronomer's stars guided the temple's prayers, recorded by the scribe. funded by the tax collector's tallies. Why was it so hard to live in ancient Babylon? Because every life, from the lowliest laborer to the highest priest, bore the weight of the city's needs: mud, water, grain, clay, reeds, and stars, all woven into a delicate balance that demanded daily sacrifice. These were not lives of ease, but of purpose, their hardships the foundation of a city that shone as the jewel of Mesopotamia. As we leave Babylon behind, let the air grow still, the city's lights fading into the night. The lives we've explored: brickmaker, lawgiver, temple servant, harvester, weaver, astronomer, tax collector, gatekeeper, potter, reed cutter, scribe, and trader, are a testament to a city built on labor and faith, where every hand shaped its legacy. Let their stories settle over you like the soft glow of an oil lamp, easing you toward rest. If you found peace in this journey through Babylon's hidden lives, we invite you to like, subscribe, and share this video from the Sleepless Historian. Your support inspires us to keep unearthing these tales, crafted with care to bring history's quiet rhythms to life. For now, rest in the stillness of Babylon, and let the gentle flow of the Euphrates carry you into the quiet of history.